One, do 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 do. 1 2 1 2. La 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 la. Let's see here. Let's see. 1 2. So we're live on YouTube. I believe live on Twitter. Yeah. And one person likes it on Twitter. Hi, one person, whoever you are. How's it going? All right, let's get settled in. Wow, an outage day, a big outage day on YouTube. So we'll see what happens. Let's see. Twitter's on. YouTube's on. Twitch, I believe, is working. Let's see who's there. Let's see. Still waiting for confirm on this thread. Yeah. Well, let's see. What did we say here? Let's see. Well, I have a guest or two today. It's a day of technical difficulties, folks. Well, maybe I have one folk. Um, uh, uh, Sorry, folks. This YouTube, Facebook being out is just kind of, bump in the road. But yeah, bump in the road. It's not a big deal. At the end of the day, Facebook isn't curing cancer. That's for sure. Some say they are a cancer. On YouTube, Sharon Baker's here. Hello. Facebook has been down. Yeah, this is a big news item. Only because of their size, but not only Facebook, but all three of their main products, as they call it. Facebook's down, Instagram's down, and WhatsApp is down. Now they may slowly be coming up as we speak. This is a real long outage. I've never seen, more than a minute or 45 seconds of, on this level. And that's long. When these sites glitch for, 73 seconds or something, it's devastating. It's a lot because you were talking 73 seconds of access times, I don't know how many people, right? A billion or something. So it's a lot of downtime in the aggregate. Facebook is still down. Instagram's still down. And let's see about WhatsApp, which I only use when I'm in the U.S. with my family. I have wonderful family on either side of my parents. Let's see, where is it? And we communicate because there's people in Canada, England, Guyana, Jamaica, maybe. Where else? Boy, some other islands. Anyway, WhatsApp is great. And when I tour the world, namely when I tour all around, but when I tour, especially Eastern Europe, South America, and a bit in Asia, all they use is WhatsApp. So it's very interesting. That must be. So if there's a tour right now, like I have friends on tour, if you're on tour right now in Chile, Brazil, Argentina, Peru, any of those countries, and today's a day where you're reaching promoters and organizing flights and vans and stuff, it's a rough day because they almost exclusively use WhatsApp. Like they 100%. Some people it's 100%. They don't even give you their cell number per se. Let me just test here. So, okay, well, I'm just testing. WhatsApp seems to be kind of fucked up too. Wow. I love it in a way. It's like, it's great because it a week without Facebook would be really great. It would be really great. Yes, the whistleblower is bad timing for them. They were already having some issues, and their stock was already taking a hit. It's always going to be a tough question for them to answer. Like, gee, what a coincidence! Your shit went down, on the Monday of this breaking news. While it's easy to make causality there, I don't think so, because think that through all the way. Why would you call global attention to yourself while there's some shit happening? Like this is the week to be really quiet and give out cake and ice cream and free stuff or something. But to do this because of the whistleblower, that doesn't really make sense, because you're guaranteeing that many more people are going to be clicking Facebook news or Googling, is Facebook down? And thereby finding out, going, what? I didn't hear anything about a whistleblower. Wow, this is interesting. So anyway, Susanna, how are you? Yes, humans do a lot of things that humans do cocaine and heroin. So, the fact that we eat meat in and of itself doesn't say much. But you're spot on. Our intestines are not. They're just plant-based intestines. Yeah, I mean, this is, thank you, Susanna, because a lot of people don't point that out, and you make a great point. If you're really a carnivore, then you're not cooking your meat, right? You're exactly correct. And a real carnivore, well, the big cats, for instance, lions, tigers, pumas, jaguars, things like that, they have a smooth intestinal walls and much shorter intestines, so that flesh goes right through there. It's very smooth. It's very quick. And you're exactly correct. The pH of their stomach acid is much lower, making it much more acidic. What can we say? Folks just try to invent their own reality. But my show, the name of the show says it all. I'm actually an advocate of just getting people to start. This show is about just trying one day a week. It genuinely is. I would call my show "Let's All Go, Let's Make the Planet Vegetarian" if that's what my goal was. I mean, that might be my goal, but it's not my goal in this forum, because I think that's impractical. So I respect people who are going to eat high quality flesh foods, and I'm really just trying to get people to cut back, and just, and cutting back 1/7 of the week would be a good start. Susanna, yeah, exactly. We're on the same page, right? That's what I was just saying with the big cats. Yeah, I mean, I used to have them memorized. I have a book. Actually, I could grab this book. There's a great book called The Sun Food Diet by David Wolfe, who I knew when he just started his raw foods company and his lecture series and all that, and he's become a bit controversial. But great guy, great ideas. The ideas exist independent of him. But he's got a little section in the book that talks about this, talks about the biology of true, indisputable carnivores, and the comparing to the body of kind of omnivores, and then frugivores, herbivores, vegetarian animals. And I put that quotes around vegetarian animals because of course the whole idea of being vegetarian is kind of philosophical. It's a human construct. So when you have animals like most of the apes, for instance, even though they have fangs and no claws, so they're halfway to the other ones. They have fangs, most of them. They are actually frugivores, herbivores, right? You look at these giant silverback gorillas, and all kinds of monkeys, orangutans, chimpanzees. You go through the whole family tree of those kind of primates, and they're technically omnivores because they will eat different things, but it's vast majority of their food is plants, right? They eat fruits and shoots and leaves and stalks and all the things from a plant. But again, because it's not philosophical, they're not doing this to not eat animals or insects. They will gladly eat eggs that they find, or they will eat bugs, worms, things that they find, or things that are right on the fruit. They don't care. So you have we just have to be clear there that we've made up the idea of vegetarianism. But observable biology shows us that there's all these animals that have an intestinal design or situation much like humans. So a lot of those animals and animals like ungulates and animals we eat like goats and cows, pigs to a different extent, they are again largely vegetarian animals. They eat grass, they chew cud, they get all their nutrients, their iron, their protein, their vitamins, their minerals right out of grass and clover and dandelion, whatever green stuff that you can graze them on. And certainly we observe buffalo, for instance, in the wild. They graze on the plains. They eat plants. So we have a pretty good database of what does the intestine look like for a plant eater versus what does the intestine look like for a clear carnivore. So Susanna, great topic and one of my favorites. But yeah, it's having said that, humans can choose all kinds of stuff. Like I said, humans can put cocaine into their bodies and all kinds of things. Alcohol, technically, although there are things that ferment and create alcohol in nature, different fruits and things that have maybe fallen and fermented. So there's a whole argument for where humans discovered alcohol and fermented sugars and things. But anyway, humans do all kinds of stuff. But you're right. We should be honest that we're not designed for it. We're not designed to smoke cigarettes. Our lungs show us over a long period of time that it wasn't a good idea, and all kinds of things. So, but I'm interested in people who eat a small amount of animal food, and I have a guest that I'm working on. I won't say his name, but he's a good friend of mine, musician friend, and he was vegetarian for, boy, I'm going to say 30 years, maybe longer, And then I asked him to be on the show last year, and he kind of had a hangdog kind of expression. He goes, "Andre, you're going to be mad." And I'm like, "Why? I wouldn't be mad at you." And he said, "I'm not vegetarian anymore." And I said, "That's you're still the same friend, man. I mean, that would be crazy, right? There's enough real stuff to unfriend people about, which I really don't do. I've done it 2 or 3 times, but you got to be really, really a douche for me to do that. But certainly, you went back to eating meat. Yeah, whatever. Hey, let's talk about it. So I want to have this guy on though because he's in incredible shape. He's in his 60s. Always been a bodybuilder, and good supplements, vitamins, antioxidants, optimizing his immune system. So I want to hear from folks like that because part of this show is to encourage people that if you do decide to eat animal flesh, um, you know, can it be higher quality? You know, I don't know. It just makes sense that if you're going to, then optimize the quality. You know. So all right. So today, and I'm constantly monitoring here to see when Facebook comes back. I'd rather do this on YouTube anyway, man. Facebook, fucking, this is great news. Maybe they'll pack it in. I doubt it. There's so much money to be made. So let's see some comments here. My kitten only wants ocean whitefish. Yeah, picky cats are a thing. Susanna says cells that heal are indistinguishable from pre-embryonic cells, right? Yeah, healing. Your body's always remaking. Yeah. So why not give it the best stuff, right? Primitive cells, one and the same. I make the to kill iron healing cells. Yeah. Okay. And yes, absolutely. As I said, when I say vegetarian animals, they all eat. They'll eat whatever, right? They eat whatever you stick in front of them. But sure, all those animals have been observed eating all kinds of stuff as an exception, you know. But again, they all eat. They all eat predominantly a plant-based diet. Those animals. Interestingly, we only eat as humans popularly. We only tend to eat, at least the Western world. Let me say that properly. England, the USA, Canada, kind of Western Europe. Not all the countries, but because there's some exceptions here, but we tend to eat the vegetarian animals. You ever think about that? We eat the animals that are not hunters and not overwhelmingly carnivorous. Pigs, cows, goats, things like bison, buffalo. These are all vegetarian animals. And again, I put quotes around that because, some critic will point out, like, a buffalo grazing in Italy where they get mozzarella buffalo, they're not, that animal isn't conceiving of itself as avoiding flesh food. So put quotes around that. But it's interesting, right? Humans, Western world largely, and a lot of the rest of the world, just eat the vegetarian animals. In other words, it's very rare, but it happens, where people are eating, lions and tigers, or eating hunting animals, carnivorous animals, foxes, wolves, right? We don't tend to eat those. We go lower on the food chain. We go lower on the, the food chain. Yeah. So if you imagine, say, the American West, where there's birds, coyotes, wolves, and then there's things down on the ground like rabbits and whatever, groundhogs and possums and things like that. Notice we eat all those. We eat the things that can be hunted. We don't eat the hunting. It's very interesting to me, which I think is one of the disconnects in the Western world when we encounter the Eastern world, when we find out, they're eating dogs in some of these cultures. They eat cats in some cultures. Horses in some of Eastern Europe and Russia. I was sitting at a table and when the horse meat came in Russia. Yeah, I've been to Russia a few times, and great vegetarian food. I mean, those countries are, because they've had so many decades of poverty. Oh, that's not the whole thing. I should retract that. That helps. But they just naturally have a cultural integration of all the vegetables and fruits and stuff. So I always have a great time in Eastern Europe because they have a lot of cabbage dishes, potato dishes, mushroom dishes. They eat a lot of different greens, and there's a lot of soups, a lot of pulses and beans and stuff. And the influence in those countries of kind of Turkey and the stands, and a lot of people from those countries are in Eastern Europe. So you have really, really great vegetarian food. Likewise in Russia, no problem. But they love their flesh foods, and they would, you'd see chicken come out, and then this one and that one, and then I remember they brought a plate of this stuff, and it looked a little purplish, a little weird, a little like sick meat, and it was horse. So horse meat, folks. So all right, well let me see if anyone's on. Thank you for coming by YouTube. Like I said, this is really where it should be. YouTube and Twitter and Twitch. Let me just make sure here. Bump. So much news right now. The SCOTUS. I'm a big SCOTUS fan, and this is like SCOTUS sweepstakes, or what would be the analogy? SCOTUS, I don't know, holiday time. The SCOTUS, the Super Bowl of SCOTUS is kind of coming up now. Anyway, thank you for jumping over to Facebook, and there's some funny stuff happening on Twitter though about this Facebook thing. A lot of glee. Some funny shit though. Some funny memes, some funny pictures. Twitter's blowing up right now. There's some funny stuff. Maybe Facebook is being repaired by this guy. This picture of a guy with all these wires, and he looks like he's going, I don't know how to do this. Oh man, this is great. So I prefer Twitter and Instagram anyway. I know Instagram's gone also right now, but I'm making popcorn. So Next Planet, how are you? Well, maybe he's staying anonymous, Mr. Next Planet. I won't say your name. Are you are you here incognito, Mr. Next Planet? Let me know if I can use your name. The outage may be contributing to the number of tweets. Probably. Oh, sure. Yeah, everyone. Twitter's blowing up right now. Okay, you are here as Scott. Just making sure. So yeah, a couple things today. Well, let's see. I have a guest. What are the fucking odds, folks? I had a couple guests scheduled for today. I think it's only it's ending up being one, and I hope he still makes it. I can understand where people are like, "Fuck that noise." Let's see. Yeah, Facebook. Yeah, again, I think it would be stupid for them to, do this on purpose. Why guarantee? Yeah, most of their users were clueless about the whistleblower. Yeah, I do love it though. More exposés are needed. And did you all see that there's a the Hollywood possible union strike. I think it's great. I think, um, let's see. Sorry, folks. This is going to be a weird technical day because I continually see if my stream came up, Mr. Scott Fisher is here, yes. And Ruby Baby stuck on the brain. All right, well, that's not a bad thing unless that's all that's stuck. Pandora Papers. Yeah, I'm going to riff a little bit because it's a weird show. Anyone see? Well, a couple things I want to make sure people have been looking at. This woman who was the whistleblower at Facebook. Yeah, this story has been bubbling up for a couple of days, and their stock was dropping anyway over the last couple of days. So that's one thing. But let's not miss. Have you seen the Pandora Papers thing? This is huge, y'all, because it's kind of so-called because there was the Panama Papers. Remember that? Like about 4 or 5 years ago? The Panama Papers exposed a lot of what would the phrase be? Economic malfeasance of the super rich and how they hide their money and all the corrupt shit. So this new, if you don't know anything about what I'm talking about, just Google when you get a chance. Google the Pandora Papers. Is that what it's called now? Yeah, the Pandora Papers. As opposed to the Panama Papers. But the Pandora Papers is kind of like a WikiLeaks type dump where the International Consortium of investigative journalists, whatever those letters are, ICIJ, they have this massive report where they look at all of these oligarchs and billionaires and some corporations and stuff, and a real close look at the 2021 state of hiding your money, right? Because these companies hide their money. These people hide their money. We've known this, right? The phrase offshore banking is ancient, right? I mean, come on. No one could possibly be really surprised at that. But the extent is what's news. The amount of how prevalent and how widespread and how much it's been legalized. Really, it's been just invited and encouraged, especially in the U.S. Almost every country.
All right, lads, listen up. Now I trained you all for this.
Sorry, that's if you got that audio, it's from Twitch. Just monitoring the Twitch feed because there's one or two people who only watch on Twitch. I love Twitch. I really want to get back into using it more. It's really great quality and you can do very high quality video, high quality audio, and it's just kind of cool. What do we got here? Verification code. All right. So what did you have for lunch? What do we have today, folks? Oh, look at that picture on Twitch. It's great, I gotta. There's not enough fucking hours in the day, but I'd like to do more Twitch streaming and stuff. All right. I've got 3 people on Twitter. How are you? If you're watching on Twitter, thanks for checking in. And if you have any comments, just tweet a reply right to this thread. But we are now live, or we've been live. I'm just checking it. Pretty trippy. Live on all 3 locations. So Oh, y'all are awesome for knowing that you can come over to Facebook. I'm sorry, uh, to either of the others, but most of you are on YouTube. Um, so this is great because it's a reminder of how much Facebook sucks, and the links, etc., are always at meatlessmondaymeetup.com. So don't forget that. Just in case I get kicked off Facebook for talking shit or something happens. Let's see. Is my guest here yet? I've got a guest, but didn't see. Oh, great. My guest is here. Hey, Nate. I see you there. Awesome. So let me get back over here. Nate, I'll bring you in just a minute. Just let me make sure I can do that because thanks for coming anyway, even though you know it's fucked up. But I'm obviously thinking on my feet, and I think we'll be fine though to get both of our faces on YouTube. So give me just a minute. Thanks for your patience, Nate, and thanks for jumping in, even though it's not what we wanted. Let me just look at our catch up on our messages so I know I'm starting from fresh. Mighty Slim, glad you're here, my friend. Facebook ain't working today. Yes, there'll be one guest today. Economic malfeasance, yes. I keep coming up with these titles. I do write some of them down. NY Grasshopper, how are you? I forget who that is, but good to see you here. Is that John? Is that you, John? NY Grasshopper? Okay. Yeah, right. Tweet DJs on Twitch. There's a lot of live music on Twitch too, NY Grasshopper. You know who's on there a bit? Bent Knee. Love that band, and they do some stuff. So, Jennifer Wyman, how are you? Glad you found it on YouTube. Nick will be joining. You probably just jumped on, but I just greeted Nick, and I told him, give me just a minute or two, because it's so weird. I want to make sure we all come on onto YouTube, which it looks like we will. All right, so let me do a quick intro. Let me first say also, I'm wearing my one of my Yes hoodies. I have a number of them. But I'm proud as a Yes crew member for almost a decade now, or about a decade. Yeah, summer 2011. There's a couple tours in there I didn't do, but because I was out with other people like Greg Lake. That's a good problem to have when the phone rings and it's Yes. Like, hey, man, can you do something October 12th? I can't, man. I'm out with Greg Lake. So I love it. I say this with gratitude, with amazement. I can't believe it. But I go out there and I do my job and I stay sober. So I get hired. But so yes, I just want to give a quick shout out and salute because there's a new album out. If you didn't know, it's called The Quest. You can buy it, you can download it and purchase it. You can check it out on Spotify and all that stuff. But just kind of cool. These guys in their 70s, the two main guys in Yes. And the guys not in Yes, Anderson Wakeman, all doing music still. I never would have thought at age 13 that was true. So that's my quick thing I wanted to mention. The other thing I wanted to mention is I have, it kind of fell apart with Facebook and all that. But I as I say every week, and I say right now, I invite those who disagree with me on should humans eat animal flesh? Should humans, do all kinds of things? To come on. And since it's been so intense, some of the exchanges on vaccines and stuff, which I'm not an absolutist on. I have, views on both sides. But I thought I'd invite some people, and I'm very happy that Nick is. Well, we'll find out in a second. It says Nate on the system, but I believe Jennifer said. Elizabeth said it's going to be Nick. So I'm not quite sure. But let's bring this person in. Go ahead and put. Oh, there you go. That's loud. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. I can hear, and now I can see you. Awesome. So How you doing? I'm Andre, and what's your name? Because I see two names.
My name is Nathaniel. You just call me Nate.
Nate. Okay, awesome. I just making sure, right? Because over on the chat, Jennifer said, "Is Nick joining?" Yeah, so maybe Nick is someone else that's coming in. Okay, so hi Nate, good to meet you, and you know,
Hey,
I I
how are you?
I, I love your
Thanks for having me.
yeah, I love your colorful thematic stuff in the background. I love that. It makes me think of warmer places, the Southwest and stuff. Are you in the Southwest?
No, I'm not in New York.
Okay, okay. It seems like we got a little delay here, so hopefully that clears up. But um, well, okay. Let's. I'm gonna go. So I want folks. If you've got, I'm sorry. Say again. Oh, if you have questions for Nate, folks, put them in the chat. And okay, and then okay, there's Celine. Okay, Celine. Thank you. Now I'm sorry. Sometimes when it's an alias, I can't remember who it is. Anthony's here. Thanks all of you for coming over to Facebook, coming over to YouTube in this strange semi-emergency. You know, all right. So okay, so Nate, I think I'm hearing my own voice come back partially. So all right, it's gone now. Okay, great. All right, so Nate, I guess boy, we can start almost anywhere, but I guess I'm am I hearing I'm hearing your speakers, Nate? Is that do you have a pair of earbuds or headphones?
Uh, that might make things easier.
Yeah, because the audio
Let
is
me try.
looping. Yeah, it's no problem. Um, and so let's see. I'll give Nate a chance to get some earbuds on, and but it's interesting because even since last week, what's interesting and some of the things I want to talk about is some of the numbers are slightly changing. I still think our numbers are horrific on planet Earth, but there's these reports of like, okay, we're plateauing and all this stuff. So that's one of the things I want to talk about. But let's give Nate a chance so he can hear me properly. And you're
Yeah,
good.
it's much better. Yep.
Oh yeah, now your microphone's better too. Yeah, awesome. So I guess let's start with some basics because I made some notes, but it's like, where do you start with stuff like this? I'll start with just let me learn a little bit about you. I take it just from Jennifer, our friend in common introduction. I take it you're not vaccinated. Is that? I don't want to assume anything, so I asked that as a question. Are you vaccinated or?
That's an interesting question. I don't believe you can be vaccinated because your body doesn't work like that.
Okay, all right. So that's an
That's I
interesting
know I'm
start.
getting a little, but no, I haven't let anybody inject an experimental mRNA.
Okay, okay. We'll
Yeah.
get into the mRNA in a minute. Well, let's back up then. Let's start with a basic concept of vaccination. So, does vaccination work for dogs? Do we not have rabies outbreaks, which we had for centuries? Do we not have those? You explain that to me then. If vaccines don't work, why don't dogs have rabies when we give them shots, and then they do when we don't give them shots? Talk me through that.
I actually did find a few articles on that because it was something I hadn't focused on. I spent a lot of my time kind of into the virology side of things, and I just recently started to brush up on the older stuff like vaccine safety and wow, I'd have to really let's see if it would take me a second and I could get back
Okay.
to it if you let me pull up an article and we'll
Okay.
move along and
So,
um
uh,
but
uh,
yeah, no, apparently uh oh it's that's something I just touched briefly on, but just like all the other so-called infectious diseases, it's not as we assume. And
So, okay.
to
Yeah.
inject what we're calling a vaccine into people,
Sure.
um,
So,
they never really provided any immunity.
okay. So,
What?
yeah. So Nate, let me. I want to focus though on. I want to go very methodically here, and I want to start though before we talk about mRNA, which you may or may not be surprised. And I don't know how much of my show you've heard, but I continually defend the idea that there's questions about mRNA. I said this from day one. That's what's funny, and that's what I get a kick out of. It also is that I've had the vaccine. I didn't want to, but I look at the different options and looked at people who had COVID, and I said, "Oh, this blows," but I'll choose this. We'll get to that later. But one thing is, I was the minute they announced this mRNA, I remember talking to people and saying, "Wow, this is a science fiction kind of a thing. They're using messenger ribonucleic acid formula. It's using nanotechnology to design it." And I said, this is like in September last year. So that's what's funny is that I was talking about how wacky the vaccines are months before all the conspiracy videos started. So I got a great kick out of that because, there are answers to those questions. So we're going to come back to mRNA. And like I said, you might be surprised. I completely support that people should be asking and saying, hey, wait, this is kind of new, right?
Sure, I definitely applaud you for, even having a platform for debate, because it's what I see and from studying, it's as if was almost like a religious subject that people just are hands off, and actually come to find out, it seems like that part of the reason that they don't offer debate, like they don't there's no placebo safety studies for vaccines.
There are.
Is not longer than like less than a week is what I'm finding out.
So let's stop right there because let's stop for a second, Nate, with all due respect, because I'm a stickler.
I'm talking about safety.
I know, but I'm a stickler for process because just even there, real time, you said there was no placebos. I corrected you, and then you moved the goalpost and said, well, there were, but they were short. Do you see how that ends up being problematic? Like,
sure, yeah, okay. No, absolutely. I'm just recently touching back on the safety stuff. I mean, I touched on that years ago, but for me, it's kind of an irrelevant conversation because what I've come to learn is that pretty much all of, and I appreciate you, wanting to, take things one step at a time. What I've been focusing a lot on this year is the science of virology itself.
Okay,
is
so
flawed.
How viruses act and work.
Them being, just for example, SARS-CoV-2, right? The
current
lab-created particles.
It may or may not be. You have absolute evidence of it. I don't know. But I'll meet you halfway. Whether or not it is, we have it on Earth, right?
Well, that's the thing, is that they can't prove that these particles have come out of a person. They have to create them through culturing processes in the lab, and they actually have not been able to prove that to cause the same disease with these particles in animal trials. I know I'm going way beyond the idea of vaccine safety, but that's where I spent most of my time studying.
Yeah, you're also saying some things that are flat out not supportable by the facts. I mean, I've read a lot of these things. That's the thing why I'm kind of troublesome.
I can back up.
Okay, so here's what we'll do.
With just a few quotes.
Awesome. So
but we don't need to get there yet.
Okay, so let's and I apologize, folks. We have a little bit of a delay, so sounds like we're talking over each other, but I'll really try to work with that. I'll say this, Nate, just in procedural fashion. If you, and I assume you prepped for this and you thought it through and you thought, hey, I'm going to be talking about something I'm passionate about. Anything you want to provide as evidentiary, videos, links to articles, I'm happy. Just put it
Oh,
into
sure.
one of two places. You can put it into the YouTube chat, or just put it in the Zoom chat, and I'll copy it over. And
Yeah,
then
I have a ton
which
of information I
okay,
kind of planned on sending you over to. Maybe,
sure.
I mean, it would take, a week to
I
go through
yeah,
the chunk of it, but I'll send you some stuff over, and and maybe we could get back together sometime and
yeah,
then,
absolutely,
go over.
absolutely. And I can't stress enough that I've seen it all. There's almost nothing you're going to send me that I haven't seen. I've been reading and watching the quote unquote conspiracy side / questioning / skeptic. Whatever, people have different words to themselves. I respect it all. Whatever people want to call themselves. Some say, "Hey, I'm just a skeptic." Others say, "I'm a conspiracy expert." Others say, "I'm a amateur researcher." Whatever it is, it's fine. And I've watched so many hours of videos. I've read the articles. I've watched the interviews. I've seen. But please send me more. I will say though that a long time ago it became a loop, and it's the same basic stuff. And some of it
Yeah, I
is
try to
very interesting.
avoid that.
Well, okay. So well,
Di-
let me.
Didn't
Okay,
mean to
let me.
cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. Let me jump back though, because I want to stick with a basic principle and get your thoughts
Sure.
on it. You started with a pretty major assertion, and again, put it back in your words, but I heard you say vaccines don't work. It's a flawed kind of medical concept that I'm describing. What
Right.
you said they just don't work. And I then asked, which is massive. That means you're discounting the results of measles, mumps, rubella vaccines, which I'm a school teacher. I'm a 20 years substitute teacher, right? And I've observed in 2 different states how measles, mumps, and rubella vaccines absolutely work. I've seen it. I've seen the people with the religious exemptions get really sick. I've seen schools that don't do it. 70, 80 people get sick right here in Asheville, North Carolina. We had an outbreak about 4 years ago. So I've lived working vaccines for viral pathogens, measles, mumps, rubella. So for your assertion to be correct, and I'll shut up in a minute and have you defend this, you're saying no, those don't work. It's a coincidence, or we're imagining, or I don't know. Those are question marks. You're also saying contextually that we haven't really wiped out smallpox after 10,000 years of continual outbreaks around planet Earth. You're also saying that polio hasn't been stopped, because each one of those, and I can keep going, whooping cough, pertussis, HPV, all kinds of things. If you're saying, so walk me through that. How could vaccines not be a thing if all of those diseases have been addressed? Help me with that.
Okay, just something I learned recently. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't know that the CDC and John Hopkins had to in the year 2000, they had to assess the proposition that the vaccine was responsible for smallpox and polio. Now, just to give us some context, is that coming from where I am, and I strongly support the terrain model. I believe that the monomorphic, actually, just that Florence Nightingale, the famous nurse, she states that there are no specific diseases. There are only specific disease conditions. Now, what had CDC and Johns Hopkins University, they had to assess the proposition that smallpox and polio had disappeared because of the vax. And they had to admit that, somebody brought it to them and said, look, there's no basis for that. These things, the less amount of people expressing these detox symptoms are strongly or 100% due to the increase in sanitation, hygiene, clean water. I mean, all these things were, changed
They're
around the same
cofactors,
time.
sure.
Well, they kind of had to admit that the vaccine literally had nothing to do with
Okay,
it
so
at all.
I want to stop there. I want you to provide evidence. And by the way, it's Johns Hopkins. So if we're going to quote them, let's use their correct name. The Johns Hopkins people, you're saying, admitted that smallpox and polio vaccines didn't do their job. I'd like that. Reference wherever you got that.
Sure.
Because what happens a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me.
Yeah. So let's and you know what?
I'll just make
Nate,
a list for
you. Exactly. You can make a
Yeah.
note. That way you're not bogged down like Googling stuff and finding. Yeah, by all means. But that's a huge charge to say that someone at Johns Hopkins said that, we admit that smallpox and polio.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't work.
Dr. Edward Kass, and he
Okay.
told us, he
Who-
kind of warned
who's
us that
that?
the
I'm sorry.
I
That's
have-
a doctor from Johns Hopkins.
No, but he, I'll get more on that. I kind of just ran
Okay.
into that like yesterday, actually.
Yeah,
But I
okay,
knew
so-
I knew that was the case because I had heard it
Yeah.
time again, but I never had a name to go with it
Okay.
until recently.
Okay.
But
So-
I'll look
so-
that up.
Okay, fair enough. You also said in what you just said, and I'm going to make some notes so I can ask you questions. You also said that the vaccines cause polio and smallpox. So how did we have smallpox in 1650 or 1750? How can you explain that?
Well, all diseases.
We're picking up a lot of microphone noise. So if you could
Oh,
be careful.
sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I've got headphones, so I can control the volume. But just for the folks out there,
Sure.
Your assertion is that vaccines or a vaccine caused smallpox. So how did we have smallpox I could keep picking years. How did we have a smallpox problem in 1885 or any previous year?
There are just some recorded instances. And the name of the town in England is there's this perfect example. Actually, the town of Leicester in England.
Yep.
The whole town got together and saw what was happening to their kids. This is where one of the original so-called I call it anti-poison movement started. Actually, a little bit before that, 1817, it was the doctors and pediatricians that were raising alarm.
It was
The
a
next
little before
big,
that, but yeah.
probably. There's probably a lot of people before that.
What was the main doctor's name who's associated with kind of creating a vaccine first? Can you tell me who that is?
We got
a well-known name. Because I'm trusting
Edward
you're someone
Jenner.
who does. There you go. Awesome. That's an important starting point name. Good. And I would expect that you would know that because our friend presented that you're somebody that really did his research. So Edward Jenner, yeah, and I believe that was 1787, 97, something like that. I can look it up.
Yeah.
Late 1700s. We agree on that,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. His son died, and they believe it was from his father practicing on him.
Or he died from.
Could have been
the
something
pox.
else, I guess.
I mean, but again, this is what happens with bias confirmation. We fit the data in for our argument, right? I mean, and it happens on both sides. I try to attack it on both sides, but okay, great.
I applaud you for having the conversation.
Tell me what you know about, for instance. I just want to get some stuff on time here. And Jennifer, I see Jennifer has a few questions, and invite other questions. Tell me what you know about, for instance, George Washington and smallpox. Was there anything you've read about that?
Oh yeah, he tried to make it compulsory, right?
Well, he did, and he had his people. So that raises a few things. It removes Fauci and the stock market and evil big pharma and all these things that are very valid discussions. It takes us back to a time when they just understood a very basic concept that getting yourself sick with a little bit of some pathogen can be a way to give you antibodies. It's really simple biology, and they knew this 250 years ago. Go ahead.
The funny thing is I have a nice chunk, and I don't know it all. I know enough to answer. I've done more than just answer my own questions. I've read a lot. I've come across some really hardcore researchers that have dug into these, and I'll send it to you. I got 240 pages.
When people
on
say
antibody
hardcore
theory,
researches, it's a
they're
very
going through the papers that are published on on SARS-CoV-2, on antibodies, and these are the papers, and they're finding the inconsistencies.
I've seen some of
it's
these.
Really it's really incredible. I mean, it's almost like
that's
like
that's one conclusion. Do you think I'm going to change?
But it's hypothetical, is what I'm saying. Is that
Thank you.
What you're showing is basic biology, and there's been several like, oh my goodness, Harold Hillman, T.C. Fry, Gaston Niacin, Louis Pasteur had several rival contemporaries. Antoine Béchamp, whose name we don't even know, and we should, because Louis Pasteur, who's ended up stealing work from Béchamp. And not only that, Louis Pasteur is guilty of giving the not the vaccine arm of the trial, but the control arm of the rabies trial arsenic. So it would look like the vaccine group got less sick.
There's
all these. So when you say basic biology, and I want to state this clear, is that all of virology and immunology is really based on a hypothesis and a theory, and really they don't have any. I know I'm going to say something what's the word? Not popular, but it's really all based on theories. And they haven't
controversial. Is that the word you're looking for?
Controversial. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Some of that stuff I've read. Some of that stuff. Whoa, my God! Years ago in college, I forget the course I had, but talked about the Pasteurs and talked about it. Got into Edison also and like other inventors in that period, and how sometimes they weren't the ones who should get the credit. And so I've read a little bit about that. You're always going to have dissenting voices, though, and for instance, do you think that, changing the subject just for metaphoric reasons here, do you think that we have a climate problem? In other words, that the glaciers are melting and icebergs are calving, and it's problematic for penguins and polar bears and things like that, and that water is rising and coastal regions are in danger, and there's bigger storms and all of that stuff. I could go on and on, but there's a lot of indicators, these floods.
I haven't done the research.
Do you think
I haven't done the research? I have friends on both sides, and I just haven't done the research on it.
Wow, okay.
I haven't done enough research on it to form an opinion.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I haven't even touched on it.
Okay, but so it doesn't matter to you that the vast preponderance of scientists on Earth have concluded that the inputs, first off, the Earth always goes through cycles. We know that. The Earth, right, goes through ice ages.
I've heard some interesting arguments on both sides, and I just haven't done the research myself and to form a strong opinion on it. I'd have to spend some real time on it.
Okay, but that part is factual, right? The first sentence I just said, that the Earth goes through cycles, tectonic movement, freezing, hot spells, places that were oceans become deserts. The American far west used to be underwater. You do know that, though, about the Earth is factual, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And we know that because we find fossil records in deserts and dry areas where there's fish, and there's evidence that, this makes sense. This was a flat ocean bottom or something. Now it's the Grand Canyon or that kind of topography. So with all due respect, I think that's a bit evasive to just say, I haven't done my research on global warming or climate change, whatever we want to call it. to say that the scientists on every continent for decades now who have pointed up that, look, on top of the natural Earth changes, which have happened since the Earth was formed, whatever it's been, 4 or 5 billion years ago. On top of that, our use of fossil fuels, especially, and everything, sequestering carbon and the methane from the animal kingdom, which is why the animal food area, actually, which is part of my show, you don't have any certainty, and even just observing in your life how the weather has changed, there's nothing that says to you, there's stuff happening with our weather.
I got to tell you, I'm not a full-time researcher. I'm a
Okay.
full-time dad.
Okay.
Just to give you a little bit of background about me, and how I got into all this. I have a 9-year-old daughter now, and after she was born, and my father kind of instilled this in me too. Do your own research. He had pressed his doctors about several issues, and he would print out. You remember when the printer paper had little dots on the side? He printed out like a stack.
I'm
and,
56. I'm 56, and I have a computer degree. So yeah, I remember those printers. Yeah, it's
So he would, if he was elderly, and he kind of instilled in me, like, the doctors aren't always right, and he had to home from a doctor's appointment, and man, they're not listening to me. I'm telling them I need to be treated like this, and they're ignoring me and sending me to their other friends that are doctors. And this guy,
we agree.
7 years old, used to have articles put on the fridge of, from health magazines. Well, when my daughter was born, they had her on an anti-seizure medicine called phenobarbital. It was created in 1914 in Nazi Germany. And then they were telling us, look, your daughter's going to be diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And so I did a little bit of research, and it didn't take much.
Yeah.
Really. One night, and I said, well, geez, the side effects of phenobarbital are brain damage. And,
it's a possible
cerebral palsy
one.
is
But did you attach
cerebral palsy?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me just finish this real quick.
Sure.
Cerebral palsy is a fancy definition for brain damage. So, and I said, I went to them. I did a little research. I went to my lawyers, and actually that's when I gained, I'm in the family court. So I got joint custody of my daughter, and a lot of fathers, would kill for that, But that was the beginning.
Hopefully not.
And that's it. But
well, these days they actually are. So I'd be careful about that. But yeah.
No, but so then when the time came to get her into school, and the vaccine issue came up, I had touched on a little bit of it back then in 2014.
Just so I can be clear in the audience, so your daughter, you're saying, was going to enter a public school, and they required the typical measles, mumps, rubella, maybe other stuff. Is that what you mean? Public school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure we're on the same page. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we had her the religious exemption at one point, and things got complicated. Either way, she had to have some injections, but I wasn't happy about that. But either way, back in 2014 is when I first kind of came in contact with some of these, just a couple of facts, and I'll send you the graphs over too. Polio and measles, for example, were at a 90 to 99% drop before the introduction of the vaccine. A lot of people don't know that, because when the line graph that they show is really kind of zoomed in from the overall timeline that they have record on.
Yeah, yeah, you can, but those things really get into the weeds of, because you have
Because sanitation and health was increasing as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are other
So,
factors, but
so there's other factors, yeah. And now again, that's something I'm an advocate for. For instance, I don't know what Jennifer or anyone else.
while
has
I'm on the
explained.
subject of polio, I'm
Okay,
sorry to
you
interrupt.
go ahead. Yep. Go ahead.
You know, the really interesting about polio,
Mm-hmm.
people that know their stuff, they kind of laugh when they say when they hear that polio was eradicated. Around the time that the introduction of the polio vaccine, like
Mm-hmm.
the Sabin and the Salk,
Mm-hmm.
which there was a lot of deaths from both of those.
There's
Um,
always danger and deaths from any pharmaceutical, including vaccines, right?
Oh yeah, I mean,
I mean,
big pharma's. We should be. I like the title of this conversation because no matter what, like we should be. These people are. They're not non-for-profits. You know what I mean?
We're on the same page. We're on.
You know.
Hold your thought though, because I want to address a couple of these things. The fact that they're for profit doesn't, in and of itself, make them evil. We're all on a device. We all have cell phone accounts. We all have,
Sure.
people with Netflix accounts, and even Facebook, which is the news item today being down, is a multi-billion-dollar company. Talk about profit. Yet we still use it, and it's got its problems. It's got So I don't know. What always troubles me with this discussion is the causality that's automatically attached. And while you're not absolutely saying this, you're making the assertion that because it's big pharma and there's so much money involved, therefore we can't trust them. I think that there's some gray area in there. The other causality, I want to jump back to phenobarbital, and you brought up the Nazis, which is always an interesting area. The Nazis had helicopters that they designed. The Autobahn is very famously thrived during the Nazis. The Nazis developed most or all of the rocket science that became our space race in the 60s. So attaching it to the Nazis is tricky. The Nazis are horrible. Nazis are fucking horrible. Let me make that clear before someone says he's defending the Nazis. No, it's not what I said.
Everybody wants an Audi.
Well, yeah, no, that's true. Audis are great. But I think my point is clear that let's just be careful. Let's just talk about phenobarbital. Sure. And its chemical properties, but do you see how folks on your side are end up being ridiculed and debased and disrespected, which I'm not doing. I'll that, and I'll say that every 3 minutes if I have to for new viewers. But I understand how people can think you're ridiculous because things are connected to the Nazis. Assertions are made.
I shouldn't say stuff like that.
Right, and assertions are made without full evidence and things like that. So I want to just on phenobarbital say, of course there's side effects, of course. Now, and my heart goes out to you that you have a beautiful daughter that you love that's had some challenges thanks to nature, nurture, chemicals, pharmaceutical, a mix of things, obviously. But I hope that everything's better for her. It keeps getting better.
I want to state is that I feel like a lot of people have this idea that people that are anti-poison. I hate using the word vaccine.
Yeah.
People that are anti-poison are just a few, vaccine injured child parents.
Yeah.
Or that's actually
Some
not
of them are.
really my case. Yeah. No, sure, absolutely.
Some,
And there's actually, I know that we have. It's really kind of unfortunate that there is this. The stigma or the argument seems to be closed, and it's
about what? Sorry, the argument about what?
Vaccines. About vaccines.
No, it's not though. People are debating widely all around. That's another one of my hangups that so many people say, oh, they're going to take this video down, and then when they never take it down, y'all never come back and say, hey, I've said that 10 times, and they don't take the videos down, or they pop up somewhere else. And the other thing you always say is there's no debate. I see the internet is filled with debate about this.
Right.
On Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. I was looking at the concert listing of an artist I liked the other day, and this artist was saying, my tour will require you to have vaccine or proof. And a vaccine debate broke out on this music thing, and I was like, oh my God. So I don't tell me where there's no debate, because it's everywhere.
Well, no, it's great, and I'm so there is, but there has been a lot of censorship too. Actually, I was just
Right.
looking to brush up on how to debate, and you've been really pleasant, and I appreciate it. I was looking for this debate I watched before they even released the jabs between Howitz and RFK, and I couldn't find it. It was already taken off of YouTube. Valuetainment, the guy that runs the YouTube show Valuetainment.
Sure.
He hosted those two in a debate, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, you know what? Howitz is starting to get it. Like, I mean, the I don't really, I'm not RFK. I find him a hero. He knows way more about the legal aspects and how the FDA. I mean, I think they get like 50% of the revenue from pharmaceutical companies.
CDC?
To run their. Well, the CDC owns about 50 vaccine patents, so there is a bit of like conflict.
All of these things people say, but then when you drill down, there's always some
these
caveats.
Yeah.
I know, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah, it is more of a caveat.
But but do you see that though? That these discussions are often filled. See, what the problem is, if you're talking to somebody, it's bias confirmation, and I'm a big fan of smashing bias confirmation. That's why I hang out with. I happen to be, again, metaphoric sidebar. I happen to be pretty left-leaning guy. I'm pretty progressive. I backed Ralph Nader a couple times. I'm a pragmatic human being, so I voted once for Clinton. I voted for this clown, Joe Biden, and he is a clown, but he's far less the clown than than we would have had by 1,000-fold. So I'm just pointing out to say that even with my views, where I should probably be living in Holland or Argentina, I don't just hang out with leftists. I don't just talk to leftists. I have friends who supported Twitler, who voted for him, who still support him, who think that January 6th was just people hanging out. But I embrace that. I want to hear them. I want to hear their thoughts. As a person of African descent, I'm also interested in hearing from black conservatives, which is a big thing. There's always been black conservatives, right? The first black senator from Mississippi, I believe it was, Alabama, was Republican. That meant something different in 18 whatever. But I think you hear my point that we have to talk to people on the other side of an issue. And the problem, I think, with some of the conspiracy folks is you go into these forums, you go into these discussion groups, you watch these videos and all the comments, and it's only people who agree with that. So you never have to provide evidence for statements like the CDC gets half of their money from pharma. The CDC owns all these patents, and that's that. There's no asterisk or reasons or anything. See what I'm saying? Like, and these statements just pile up on each other without question. And
yeah, there's better arguments than that.
And know that I'm saying that about both sides.
I forgot to leave out.
Please go back
ahead.
to what. Yeah. Well, hold your thought.
Oh, you were on a roll, and it was really good.
Hold your thought. I want to go and respect some of the people in the chat because a lot of people are asking questions. Let me just make sure because it's ahead of me. So, folks, I have Nate on, and it's been about a 40-minute chat, I think, something like that. It's been a wonderful 40 minutes or so chatting with this young man. Never met him before. We just met now. And we have some disagreements on a few things. I'm sure we agree on 90% of stuff, though, which is life should be beautiful and people should eat healthy food and make their immune systems thrive. And you agree on that, right, Nate? We should eat healthy food, take care of ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
Hydrate,
that
vitamins.
Is key.
Yeah, that's key. And so I'm sure we agree on 97%. But for those of you who might have just tuned in, thank you for coming to even though Facebook fell apart. But let me just make sure some of the questions get answered here. So let's see. I saw that Jennifer had a question.
Am I getting ridiculed on Facebook right now?
So far, I don't see that. Well, there's no Facebook, actually. That's what's funny. Facebook is still down, which I love.
Oh, is it really?
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't log on, and I thought there was something wrong with my computer.
Yes. If you look on just Google the news or on Twitter or something. It's a
Oh.
major problem. The three
I was
products
busy
of
doing
Facebook.
something.
Yeah, that's fine. That's not a criticism. Just saying that's where you can read about it. But Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram are all down right now for about 2
Wow.
hours. Yeah, they have a major problem. Anyway, I fucking hate Facebook. Really, I'm there just because it's useful as a musician, as an artist, and as someone reaching other people. But I would love it if I could press a button, have everyone who knows me there, just come over to my YouTube until YouTube collapses, because that's Google Incorporated and all that. Anyway, couple questions here. Jennifer Wyman says, "Hi, Jennifer, and thank you for setting this up." Jennifer says she wants to do a live where we start from 1900 and trace the timeline of chemical pharmaceuticals and the decline of natural medicine. I'd love to, Jen. You come on. You'll be on. I'd love to. And please, Jen, when you say that, my blood pressure goes up a little bit, and you can hear, because my brain says, Jennifer, you do remember that that's my career, right? I spent almost 20 years in natural foods, working for another company, a beautiful co-op that's still in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And then for over 10 years with my late partner, running one of the most successful stores. And I'm not just saying that. We won awards from distributors because of how well we did in our small space. So Jennifer, that my life has been about your very sentence. My life has been about looking at chemical pharmaceuticals and the decline of natural medicine, and fighting with every fiber of my being to increase the awareness of natural medicine, the availability of natural medicine, right? The affordability of natural medicine. That's what I do. And so when you say things like, well, Andre, we should look at chemical pharmaceuticals, and some of the comments you have made, Jennifer, during this debate on vaccines, because I've got this shot in a horrible nightmare situation, it seems like you're ready to throw away everything you know about me, that I'm here to fight for natural living. This year is just an asterisk in our lives. That doesn't mean I don't wake up in the morning. I did today. I took some vegan vitamin D because I was low on vitamin D. I drink an emergency a couple times a day if I remember. I take a multi-mineral, multivitamin. Again, when I remember, I'm not great at that stuff. I eat a whole foods diet because every day I'm thinking about what you just said. I don't want to have to take chemical pharmaceuticals. So what's amazing to me is I don't, for 37 years being a vegan and vegetarian, and I do once, and it means I don't believe in the rest of it. So that's how that feels, Jennifer. Tell me if I'm wrong, but All right, let me race through some of those other questions. I want to talk about the Flexner report and the AMA. That must be a typo. So, the Flexner report. Okay, we'll pull that up. Vaccines have never wiped out any disease. Okay, again, Nate's saying that. That's a really tough statement to prove.
Heard of that.
And then we've got Gabby Petitos. Okay, other people are watching things. Here's an actual scientist, a researcher. Thank you for being here, Robin, Renee. She says, scientific theory doesn't mean that it's profoundly in question. Thank you. It's just the language that describes things. We keep building on and learning about what we call theories that are well established and understood. Thank you. Because, many things are called theories that are, used every day to fly planes and take rockets into space and things like that.
Can I interject a short question just since you mentioned that up?
Please, and I'll come back to
we're talking about injecting billions of people with something experimental based on a theory. And I gotta, I feel bad that such a amount of fear has been created enough, whether it's legit or not, that we would use somebody who seems like sound like you take care of your body. And I got to say, maybe if you didn't, after injecting that stuff, you may have, if you didn't take care of yourself, you might have had a bad reaction. But
the evidence the evidence shows otherwise, Nate, because around 100, we can look up this exact number. So folks, this is a ballpark number, on the order of 170 to 190 million Americans have had this shot. But Nate, if it was true that bad eating causes a collapse in your system after the vaccines, America would be a bloodbath right now because most Americans are amongst the worst eaters, right? No, really, right? We agree on that. We eat more fast food than anyone on the planet. We eat more processed food. We have more obesity. We're on an average of 8, 10 drugs each, and that's a number I read a decade ago. I'm sure it's higher. So that doesn't make sense, my friend. The vast majority of people in America in that number, and I'll look it up. Again, I haven't looked it up in 2 weeks or something, but
here's the thing.
It's somewhere up
a
there.
lot of people might not know it.
Okay, but they're really sick in America?
In a way, it has been what you said, a bloodbath. And I understand that I understand that
for the unvaccinated, yes, it has. The numbers are outrageous deaths right now for unvaccinated. The hospitals and ICUs are outrageous right now for unvaccinated.
I got an article I got to send you over to because the data in the United States is completely different than every other country, like Israel and the UK, and it's for several reasons.
Yeah, tell me some of those reasons.
That maybe the reporting has been changed so much. Now they're able to build this kind of false assumption that these things are safe. When in the United States, you're not considered. I mean, maybe you have heard this, maybe you haven't. There's several articles on it. Some of it I found myself reading, but you're not considered vaccinated until 14 days post your second jab. Now, you're really asking if I've heard that? With all due respect. You heard that?
I mean, my mind is blown because, yes, that was the headline and the news for weeks before the actual vaccine started. They said, here's how it's going to work. The Pfizer and the Moderna are going to require 2 doses spread out by a couple of weeks, slightly different each. And then 2 weeks after that, you will have biological immunity.
Most of the injuries happen within 48 hours, or how long does it take you to have a bad reaction to poison?
Yes, those
are not being recorded as vaccine injuries or deaths.
Well, they are, because if you go to VAERS,
a lot aren't.
Okay, so again, you're moving things around here. Okay, first off, if that was news to you that it's 14 days after the completion of vaccine dosage to reach immunity, then I don't know what to say, because that was public, everywhere in news. But then, I don't know, I'm not going to assume this about you, but other folks I've talked to don't watch any news that's not from Secret Conspiracy Blog or TakeDownBigPharma.com or, InsiderHealthNews.org.
Right. Well, that's on the CDC website.
Right, yes, and on the CDC website, it said in, I'm going to say maybe as early as December, but certainly January, February, they said, hey, the rollout is starting. Here's how the vaccines, there's 3 that are approved in the United States. There's another odd half dozen around the planet. But the ones that our government and our FDA, which tests food and drug, it's in their name. I'm happy that I can open a can of beans every day because the evil big FDA has approved this company to make the frozen tempeh that I bought or the black beans that I bought. And they recall lettuce and spinach and chicken and things all the time because it's not safe for us. So that same methodology said, here's how the vaccines will roll out. So if that you present that as if it was like a surprise, and that's puzzling to me. Hold your thought. I'm going to hit a number here and then go back to the good folks on YouTube. And I like to be accurate numbers, and I'm asking you to in fact, while we're pausing, this would be a good time. Give me some of those links you're talking about. Give me a link that says, I'm writing these down. Give me the link where your words where John Hopkins, but it's Johns Hopkins. And again, I might sound like a prick to some people with stuff like that, but when someone doesn't have the name of the university right, again, with nothing but respect, it says to me, you've not read that much stuff from them, right? Because after a few times, you'll go, oh, that's a funny name, Johns. That sticks in my mind, Johns Hopkins. So I'm just throwing that out there that these are measures of where you're getting your info.
How often today do I say that? I just maybe I mispronounce
like
it.
I said,
maybe I don't know how to spell it.
like
no,
I said,
I know.
All due respect. but it's not the only data point where you've kind of had to say, well, I read it somewhere. Well, where? Now's your chance. I'm going to go to some other stuff, and while I'm saying some other things, it's a good moment that you can give me a link or two. Put them right in the YouTube chat or in the Zoom chat, and I'll copy them over. So just to follow up on numbers, and folks, if you were listening not 5 minutes ago, I gave an estimate on how many fully vaxxed there are in the USA, and I said it was on the order of, what did I say, 170 to 180, something like that. And it is, in fact, today, this is according to our World in Data, it's 185 million fully vaxxed in America. So pretty much what I thought. Yeah, right around where I thought. You're pushing somewhere over half of the known U.S. population, and so, but that's important to bring up.
Then you've seen the amount of.
Yeah.
Then you've seen the amount of deaths.
Yes,
well.
but Nate, what your side always leaves out is those are deaths out of 185 million. So you see what I'm saying? So
15,000. But here's the problem.
Okay.
Not only have, I mean, aside from the nurses, with there's a whistleblower video just a week ago or so, a woman saying they're not reporting these. Historically, less than 1% get reported, and 67% to 85% of those are from doctors. These reports, and now it seems like there's an extra effort going into, and here's the problem. Here's the stigma: is they believe, well, don't raise any alarm about safety or deaths because that might deter somebody from getting a life-saving jab, right? Yeah. And that's be the logic behind, raising any alarm. When I know for a fact that vaccines are useless, but holy crap, there's no. It's like just for me, it seems like, and a lot of people, it's like. There couldn't be a big enough flag of caution going on. We throw caution we threw it in the garbage disposal. The garbage disposal.
There's so many things here but I'm taking notes. All right, moving backwards, I'd like you to show me a link, and I have to grab. It's out of a book.
Okay. And I'd have to go to the back of the.
What's out of a book? That there's 15,000 deaths? Because that's what I'm going to ask you.
No. The thing about the CDC and John Hopkins and Dr. Edward Klaus.
Yeah. Okay. So and when was the book published? That's a recent book, or?
That's Dissolving Illusions.
That doesn't tell me when was the book or if you don't know, you don't know. I can Google. But when is that book from? Is that a new book? What's the book called? Dissolving what?
Dissolving Illusions. It's one of the books I've been meaning to read. I've just kind of been into some other things. I just finished
Dissolving.
Well, I went through
there it is.
Virus Mania is a newer book. Well, they have a newer edition.
Okay. So
Contagion Myth is one I just finished.
Okay. So if I can round this out for the folks listening, I'll put the link in the YouTube. It's a book from, it appears to be 2013. So looks like an interesting book. Looks like a book I would read, and it looks like a book that I hope Elizabeth and Jennifer remember that I would carry in the store we used to have, because I want people to be critical of big pharma. It's about can you hold two thoughts at once, which is no more in America. But anyway, I put that link there. But I will say that it's tricky, depending on a book from 2013 in totality, right? Because that's the whole point. This is a novel virus that has hit planet Earth. Whether or not it came from a lab or it came from the wet markets, we can set that aside for now. We could do 2 hours just on that. But in a way, that doesn't matter. It's here, and we're dealing with it. Can we agree on that? We can go back to how, but right? But whether or not that makes sense to you, that is a fact that it is here. So, but I want to ask you.
It's important to have.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think it is important to have some of that historical reference, though.
Yes, and I said that.
Because a lot of the whole idea that vaccines have saved us from anything, comes from that
Yeah.
kind of continuous,
Yes. But
inundation over the years.
yeah, but there's also a lot of wacky people in the natural foods world, and I've encountered them in the thousands, my friend, and I've
I
encountered
know.
wacky ideas. That's I think a part of the perspective that people don't realize I bring to this table. I've heard all of the dissenting stuff, including that you can't live without meat. That's a favorite one, and people will bring you books that say that. You know who Joseph Mercola is? He's been popular
Yeah,
again as anti-vax. But when I first heard of him 25 years ago, it was people bringing me articles and stuff they printed out saying,
he
you
believes you
have to.
can't live without meat.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I heard meat wasn't even really a food we need at all.
Well, if you're correct if you heard that, because we were talking about it at the beginning of the show. We're clearly no fangs, no claws. Our intestines are designed a certain way. The pH of our blood, our saliva, our intestinal flora is all leans towards herbivorous, slightly omnivorous. But we're certainly not supposed to be eating 2 or 3 servings of meat a day like the average American, in many regions of America does. But my point being, though, just because there's dissenting about something doesn't make it, just because, there's an outsider book about this, that proves that this whole thing collapses. Because that's been said about all kinds of things. And so I'm just saying, I'm saying, and I think I clearly have, I applaud books like this. I put it in the chat. I
Great.
I applaud that there's questions. I really do, and I read many of those books growing up. And
Right.
I'm a big fan of Gary Null. Do you know who that is?
Say again.
Gary Null. Do you know that name?
Sounds
Okay.
familiar.
I invite you to look him up. He's great. He's in his 70s, I think. I don't think he's hit 80 yet, but amazing mind for natural living. He's written numbers of books. He's had companies. He's been a lecturer, a teacher. He's owned health food stores, and he has a radio show. And I appreciate him. I've learned a lot from him. He's quite anti-vax, and I listen to some of the very sensible things he says about it. But it doesn't mean he's 100% right on everything. But
Right.
I'm just saying that to say that I'm not some tone-deaf cheerleader for pharmaceutical, which, frankly, Elizabeth and Jen, you kind of go there a lot. You paint me as some nutcase who's cheering for Fauci, and I don't understand it. Yeah. So let's go back and make sure I hit.
It's important to have the discourse. It's important to
It
have
is. I
the
think so.
conversation.
Yes.
Because some people need to, they need an opener. They need a gateway
Yes.
to, if they're coming from one side or the other, and it might be something they really need to learn
Sure.
about.
Yeah.
We all had that, kind of that first article or that first video that kind of opened our world to,
Of course.
a lot of interesting truth or health.
Yeah.
And
And you go from
especially
there.
right now, I think the most important thing for us is, humans and Americans, is that I feel like we just, as much as there's so much to debate about right now, I think the most important thing is that we should try to all agree that in freedom of choice. I know,
Okay. Yeah. And I want to get to that freedom of choice and the mandates and stuff. So
Yeah.
let me write that down. That's in my notes actually as a topic to hit. So we'll come back to that. But let me circle back, and there's so many things flying by, and to me that's one of the things in any discussion. And believe me, I am just as hard on people on any side of the argument when stuff just flies by and we're not addressing things and kind of saying, hey, are these the building blocks for the case you're making? What does each one mean? So I want to come back to a few things. I want to though ask in terms of how the exchange has been going. Nate, do you find me arrogant to you? I mean, I've pushed back on you a couple times. I've definitely, but do you find me arrogant to your?
No, not at all.
Okay, I appreciate that. I hope I'm not. Just because I want to point out, Jennifer, Jennifer says,
I think
bring down the arrogance meter. I mean, Jen, it's you on that, my friend. I'm amped up. I'm energetic about this issue, but there's no arrogance. I'm allowed. Any of us are allowed to get amped up and be emotional about this, but I'm not arrogant. I respect your friend. I wish you were on, and you're also addressing a joke I made. Nate said something he would kill for, and I joked, I laughed. You can go back and watch that's the good thing. This is recorded, so there's no, but you can go back, and I was joking. I chuckled, and I said, well, there's guys doing that for real now, so careful what we say. I was kidding, and I think Nate took it as a joke. He chuckled too, right? Nate, am I misrepresenting?
you're fine, man. You're fine.
But I want to make a point of this because Jen comes after me a lot. And it's a drag because we were friends when her wonderful family were customers at our store. But anyway, just asking her to take a breath on some of this stuff. Anyway, give me a second to go through. I don't want people to be left off on the questions. So Jennifer says if we trace it back to pharma and chemical company, Rockefeller, blah blah blah. I was
going to ask
I've read that
did you
stuff,
know?
Jennifer.
Did you know that
give me a second to finish. Jennifer,
the majority of the
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Did you know the majority of the medical schools were actually naturopaths, right? At one point.
Sure, you go back 1800s.
Before Rockefeller dumped all the money in.
Of course I do. And again, not to be flippant, but I co-owned a natural food store, a hardcore, as organic as possible.
So of course you know that.
All of it. Well, it's okay to ask, but I'm just fleshing it out for people who might not know this. We had books. We had dissenting information about medical theories and therapies and things. Absolutely. And we had a lot of chiropractors who were customers and who their customers would come in and we would share knowledge. And so yes, I'm very familiar with naturopaths, osteopaths, chiropractors, homeopaths, had all of those as customers. So always the conversation about how the AMA would suppress and give them problems all through the years until they got to, the 70s or even 80s where they really started having their own organizations and being able to thrive. So we're on the same page there. But let me.
Do you know Harvey Bigelson? You know that name too, right?
I don't know
really?
him, but there's so many of these names, and when I go look these people up, sometimes I read stuff and I go, oh yeah, this guy was in that other article. But tell me, who's he in? What era did he live in, and what did he do?
He just died not too long ago, probably a couple of years ago. But Harvey Bigelson, he actually opened it up to where you can get your medical license in naturopathy in Arizona.
Oh, he was the person. Okay, that's great. Well then, here I see.
Real cool.
Harry Bigelson. Yeah, and that's great.
And I can't leave the show without saying this one word.
Please.
That really will open it up. And sometimes I tell people, I say, you want to be a part of an elite group of people, just go home and research this one word, pleomorphism. Pleomorphism. And that's the key. That'll open it all up.
Obviously that's a body and a body and disease term, right? I remember seeing that. Let's see, what does it say? The occurrence of more than one distinct form of a natural object, such as a crystalline substance, a virus in cells of a tumor or an organism of different stages. Okay, right. Okay, so just that organisms change in their life cycle, basically. Yeah. Okay. In a general.
So the funny thing is I mean, what I found is that, well, by researching and reading other people's research, is that we kind of got stuck on this one cause ideology. It's this bacteria or it's this particle.
I'm sorry,
you're talking about the
COVID situations particularly?
Causes of disease in general.
Okay, or so how you're going back. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. We assumed it was a specific bacteria.
Yes. The germ theory of disease. Yes, I'm very familiar with it, and I live my life, trying to optimize natural immunity and not listen to a linear kind of, you need to take all these pills. I mean, it's futile to point that out to some people, but yeah, we're on the same page there. I want to pull it back to COVID, though, and let me, again, just give me a second here to clear up the thread of questions on here, and I appreciate you folks that are on there.
Sure.
Let's see. Okay, so Jennifer, yes, I've read tons about the Rockefellers. In fact, I think I'm older than you, and I was reading about the Rockefellers in the 80s. I used to read Nexus magazine. I still have copies. I used to read a magazine called Conspiracy Magazine. Because I wanted to see, wow, the CIA, the FBI, what's happening? Who really killed Kennedy? Did we land on the moon? Is money supported? Why doesn't the gold standard go away? Fort Knox. Wow. I read about all that stuff. The Rockefellers, the Illuminati, the Bilderbergers, the Rothschilds. What's the Bohemian Grove? Oh my God, I spent years down that rabbit hole. You know about Bohemian Grove, Nate?
I've heard of it.
Okay, that's huge because that's an actual thing. It's a place where rich people, most of the living and former presidents go there for a big soiree, and people from Hollywood and people from Exxon and all these big companies. And we have films that have snuck out from, like the wait staff, for instance, has snuck out pictures, and they do all these rituals and stuff. So maybe it's just a party in the woods just north of San Francisco. I don't know. But I'm just saying that there ain't a conspiracy I haven't read about in my youth, from UFOs to the Bilderbergers to Bohemian Grove. And I invite anyone watching, if you've never heard of Bohemian Grove, look that shit up. But so to Jennifer, sure, send me stuff about the Rockefellers. I mean, I've read it 10 times, but you know, the vibe that these things are surprises or gotcha or new info is just peculiar to me. Jennifer says your side is easily ridiculed. Well, like I said, I ridicule both sides. World War II, the Star. I'm not gonna go point by point, Jen. But you should be on the show. Be on next time, because this is where. Okay, so the AMA. Thank you, Scott. Fauci is a joke. 32 awards. Yeah, Fauci's been around a bit and had a bunch of times to be proven. Okay, so Jennifer says, Nate, you tell me what you think. She says, I duped you when the truth is the joke's on me and my faux science. I haven't duped Nate. I'm listening to whatever Nate, an intelligent, polite young man, wants to tell me, and I'm just asking him, give me links, give me stuff, bro. Let's talk. Let's,
My computer's really running so slow. I just tried to pull up a Word app so I could read you a few quotes.
Okay, yeah, that's
and I
fine.
almost.
Oh, so hold that.
I almost lost you.
Yeah, hold that, and let me get to the bottom of these questions. But I just have to say, our friend
and I do
common,
I do wish I was a little bit more prepared, and and my computer was fast enough to send you some stuff. But I will.
It's fine. It's fine, because I more want the general big things, like statements like vaccines don't work. And again, I think we really haven't drilled down and talked about measles in schools, in grade schools. They work right in front of our eyes. Rabies. We don't have dogs with rabies running around like they do in some third world countries where there's been a societal collapse, or where we had in the Western world a long time ago. So there's all these other things. So think of that question. And again, give me a second to I'm going to race through here, because Jen, I'm going to skip the rest of your comments because now you're just insulting me.
There's a study I'll send you. The kids that go through the detox symptoms of measles have a lesser chance of getting all types of cancer. Now, it's really our theory of disease that has to change, and I think that you will. Being a naturopath, you are going to fully love when you start. You're going to fully embrace terrain model. I don't call it a theory.
Do you know I've been?
It totally backs up all of what you stand behind, which is health.
Thank you. And again, you just met me today, but fleshing out my bio for you a little bit, the only medical people I've been to since 1984. Yeah. And I use the umbrella to mean all of it. I've been to a chiropractor for years and years. I used to have a pretty
Yeah.
bad back. I've been to osteopaths, naturopaths. So that's my world, man. There's nothing I'm going to learn that's going to make me go, wow, naturopaths,
Right.
they're the
Yeah.
bomb. That's
Yeah.
how I live. That's how I live. Having said that, I'm
Sure.
56, and a few years ago when it was time for my colonic, right?
Mm.
I didn't go to the naturopath. I went to an MD, and they made me drink this stuff, and they stick a sensor in your ass, and they take a fucking picture with machines that are based on science. Some of them are theoretical. Some of them they don't know. Yeah, is this imaging technique working? Let's test it for a few years. So we live in a world of theoretical things all the time. But I'm just making the case that there's times medical doctors kept on a very short leash are useful. The other time is I had bronchitis about 2-3 years ago, and I tried the natural stuff. I tried andrographis, and I tried, I think, black walnut hulls. That's more of that's a poison, by the way, for Jen and Elizabeth, which I want to readdress. The fact that poison's a good thing. I like to kill mice if they're infecting my fucking house and bringing vermin. I like poison to stop rats overtaking New York City. I like poison. I like poison that will kill bacteria in my lungs if I've got bronchitis and I've got different things. I want antibiotics once in a while. Not often. Hopefully not for a decade. But if I'm traveling in the tropics and I have some shit that happened, I want poison. So I want to disavow this concept.
I've heard even naturopaths say that some antibiotics in emergency situations are. I mean, I haven't read it all yet.
Yeah, of course they're useful. Yeah.
I have read quite a bit to make
We wouldn't. A thing that's left out often in this discussion is because everyone wants to say, well, what in the 1800s we did this, and in the 1700s. But you died at 22 a whole lot in those years. The lifespan was 57 in a lot of populations, 47. Okay? That's what we forget because you broke a tooth biting a peach pit or something, and you got an infection and you fucking died because we didn't have antibiotics. So we forget that. And I embrace the past too. I'm always dreaming about ancient times and how much simpler it must have been. I really do. I love it, and it drives my love for natural life because I know humans did things cleaner and natural for most of our history. It's really the last 150 years. So that's what frustrates me is that I am a critic of all this chemical shit and pharmaceuticals, but I also live in a rational world. And in a rational world, human beings had a shitty lifespan. You just died. That's why people had 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 kids in periods of history because half of them died.
There's a lot that Western medicine has to give. I do believe it's, of course,
Good.
It's been unchecked with 2/3 of deaths being iatrogenic, from the medicine.
Exactly. So we're on the same page with all that. Yeah. Again, I keep saying I'm going to go back to the comments. I'm getting little bites. Let me really try to knock them out.
I mean, I can honestly overlook all of it if we were to one day get rid of virology.
Well, that's not going to happen. But there's too many tens of that. Someone asked before, and since you brought that up, I'll ask, what's your background, Nate? I know you're not a medical person. You would have said that, but what's your science background in high school, college, university? Give me an idea of how much, just your background on.
Oh, well, I lost there, but I do have 2 associates and a bachelor's.
Okay, that's great.
I spent,
and
let's see,
that means a lot.
At least in my spare time between 2012 and 2014, researching vaccines. Just come home from work, all of this throughout the entire pandemic, just nothing but research.
I have too, and people can look at my Facebook. I started streaming about this around March 15th. A year and a half ago, and I'm not blowing smoke, but I'll have to say that was early on. There wasn't anyone talking about this at the level. And in March of 2020, and again, I'm just saying, go look. It's on my Facebook if we ever get Facebook back. And some of it's on YouTube. I was already talking about different types of viruses and virology and things that I'd learned not only in school many years before, but already watching interviews with people like Michael Osterholm. Do you know who Michael Osterholm is? Is that we've been going back and forth with names? Do you know his name?
Mm-mm.
Osterholm. Okay, so again, we don't have to know all the names, but this is a major guy. He's a PhD, he's a Master of Public Health, and he was the director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research at the University of Minnesota. He's now been on Biden's advisory board for, whatever, 6 months.
I didn't want to say yes if I didn't, but it does sound familiar.
Yeah, okay, good. and I know too many people, he works for Biden. So, his 20, 30 years of brilliant work on countless viral outbreaks, and he knows a lot actually about mad cow, mad deer, what's the other one? Lone Star tick. These other zoonotic diseases that he's an expert on. So I highly recommend checking that guy out, because before he was on the board of Biden's medical advisors, he
works for NIH.
He's got a long history. He does not. He's on the board of. Let me get the exact. He's a member of the COVID-19 advisory board. So that's a group of people, all medical and virologists. It's probably a pharmacist or two. Probably some statisticians, right? We can imagine who's on an advisory board.
The best we could have had was that Scott guy.
Scott Gottlieb?
No.
Okay.
The guy that Trump wanted to replace Fauci with. I mean,
Scott,
he actually.
Do you know? Okay, well, I'll let you look his name up, because again, we don't have to remember every single name. But tell me which guy you're talking about, and let's. Hopefully we agree, though, that the track record of people that the previous president put in is a pretty bad one. There's almost nobody other than military generals that knew anything about the department they were in. Do you agree on that? I mean, it's a fact, but do you agree on it?
Oh, I just shy away from the politics so much. See, Trump invested in some of these jabs, and Biden's pushing them. I wanted Tulsi Gabbard, and some people don't even know who she is.
I couldn't imagine who doesn't know who she is, because she was in the clown car of candidates, and I say that, jokingly, but there was like, oh my God, 10, 12, 15, 17 candidates for a while, and she was there quite a long time. I think she was there when it was like a dozen, when it got cut in half to a dozen. So anyone with a passing attention span of the previous election knows exactly who Tulsi Gabbard is, and so she's a very public figure. So those kind of statements confuse me, because it says to me your perspective on what's big known fact is a little different. This is the second one.
I've heard people tell me that they didn't know who Tulsi Gabbard was.
Well, it's maybe the people you're meeting in anti-vax forums. I don't know who are these people, because anyone who's an adult that, let's say, voting age, let's just stop 18 and up, who would be 20, 19 or 20 now, who voted in the, last year. It's got to be a small number who doesn't know the name Tulsi Gabbard, because
you would have imagined.
A, she was in the running for a long time, and B, because of some of her views and statements, she was often in the news, and she's a vet. I respect her service.
They almost
that.
Tried to kick her out of the Democrat Party there.
Well, yeah, that might be a stretch,
because she wasn't. She didn't want to vote for Hillary or whatever. But I just stay away from the politics altogether. My education isn't broad; it's sharp. And what I've spent most of my time this last year is investigating things like the projection models, the PCR tests, the mRNA jabs, and virology itself. So far, they have yet to prove that these particles in the Petri dish labeled SARS-CoV-2 can give animals the same symptoms that people are experiencing.
That makes sense because they're animals.
Hardcore stuff. This is This is from the animal trials.
Yeah, but that makes sense.
Well, that
and
we
this
are
is-
basing that we're injecting a bunch of stuff into people based on a theory. You have to prove that this
Yeah.
particle is causing disease before you experiment on an entire population.
But
And I
if
think
they
we
do,
should be able to agree on
if
that.
they do, you probably still wouldn't take it. So that's wow, we're just really jumping around here. Let me try to focus on a couple things. Let me finish with a little bit of. You said you have 3 degrees. Did I hear that correctly? You have a
Would you
bachelor's.
excuse me 1 second?
Okay.
Would you excuse me 1 second?
Yeah, no problem. This will give me a
Okay.
chance to catch up on the stuff on YouTube. Oh shit! All right, there we go. So, still down, huh? The only reason I'm concerned about. I'm not really concerned about YouTube. I'm sorry, Facebook, other than my selfish usage of it. But all right, well let's catch up while Nate's stepped away for a minute. Next Planet, thank you. Okay, Robin, Renee, and Next Planet, two dear musician friends. I'm glad you're here together. Scott says he's a conquistador of the truth. Yeah. And you certainly are, my friend. But it's very odd when people beat their chest over knowing the truth. Right, the scientific method is developed. Yes, the scientific method is a continually evolving discussion, right? And one of my favorite things is astrophysics. And when you read about that kind of stuff, they're continually updating it. They're continually, so it is, the word theory doesn't really mean, what it's implied to mean. Let's see. Abandon expertise. I've done a bunch of research. Exactly. Robin says it's a huge challenge. I try my best to discuss the importance of vaccination, especially with others I encounter in the people of color communities who are hesitant. Exactly. Many people of color have seen things like Tuskegee experiments, seen things like Nestle in Africa doing really questionable stuff, have seen non-working birth control be given to women of color, and later find out, we were testing, so this is a continual thing. The Japanese people, some living Japanese people were put into concentration camps, and other groups, native peoples, tribal peoples, know that I don't trust what drugs this white government's giving me. So I get that. and the issue, though, like with mRNA, is we sit and talk, and there can be answers to this, often from healthcare people who are of color, like Rob and Renee and many doctors and nurses. Liz Wyman says, Andre, where did the switch happen? Why do you no longer put trust in the power of foods? Well, why do you put words in my mouth? Of course I put trust in the power of foods. I have a fucking show called Meatless Monday every Monday for 14 months. What is it about other than the healing power of foods? Why can't we hold 2 thoughts at once? Why can't I not be passionately dedicated for the rest of my life? If I die a minute from now, I win for my personal battle. And what did I win? I won 37 years of proving I can live on plants. I've won 37 years of proving that my immune system can be great, and I work in a highly what would be a contagious area for a lot of people. I go in buses and planes and vans and clubs with all kinds of people who are sneezing and coughing and sick all winter long, and knock on wood, I stay healthy. Why? Because I believe in the healing power of food. So what's fascinating to me is, to you, it's impossible. That all goes away. 37 years of my life goes away because I made a conclusion in a burning fucking airplane crashing into the Andes, which is what a once-in-a-century zoonotic outbreak is by my description. But the insults and the snark just get old. I got to stop being triggered by it, though. You're right, guys and gals. I got to move on. Thank you, Robin. Exactly. In a nutshell, just supporting what I said. Nature versus medicine can be both, not either or. Jerome, good to see you here. Elizabeth says, daughter had a UTI. Instead of going to antibiotics, she put on cranberry juice, raw garlic, and honey, cherry smoothies. Great! I mean, your implication is that I would have you go on antibiotics, I guess. This is hilarious. I love that you use the natural sources, my friend. That's always my first go-to. So try again. I'm in support, and I love that you did it naturally, which is what I said about my bronchitis. But did you not hear that, or did you skip over? I think Nate heard it. Nate, did you hear me say I had bronchitis, and I tried all kinds of shit, man. I tried herbs, and I went on a liquid fast for a few days. I tried this, I tried that, and it hung in there for months. And I finally was like, I got to go to the doctor. And my other half took me to the doctor, and she was like, dude, you have full-blown bronchitis here. I'm glad you came in, because you could have died from this, not right away, but several months from now. Your lungs are fucked. Get on these antibiotics. So, Elizabeth, my friend, I think you're my friend. I applaud you using cranberry juice, garlic, and honey. That's what I do. But then at a certain point, I say, big guns. I got to use the big guns once in a blue moon. We're in that blue moon, So anyway, are
you saying we're in that blue moon with the COVID jabs?
That's correct. Or no, with the once in a century, and it literally is. It was 100 years ago we had such a bad global outbreak. Once in a century problem. So I don't, Let me ask you a couple questions, though. I want to round out some of your background. You said, maybe I heard wrong. Tell me again what degrees you have and in what subject. So,
I'm your average guy with a couple associates and a bachelor's.
In what field?
Graphic design.
Okay.
None of it's in medicine, but
okay,
I know.
That's
most
fine.
of my,
that's not,
I know. I heard you say you started off saying. I think a lot of people, watching a video, if the guy, if at the end or at the bottom, in the comments, it's well sourced. But I really spent very little time watching videos. Most of the research that I've been doing or following is it's all on medical journals.
Okay, that's So let me it's a pretty quick question to answer. So you've got 3 degrees. One's in graphic design. What are the others? Just I'm rounding
the 2
out
associates is illustration, graphic design, and a BA in graphic design.
Okay, great. So
now,
and that's great. That's awesome. That's a great, commendable career. I'm jealous of graphic designers. Y'all are doing brilliant stuff, especially with the tools available today. I applaud you, and I applaud anyone who's finished their high school and gone on to other stuff. Again, I'm a progressive who wants 14 years of tax-paid education so young people like you can live their dream and go get that associate's degree or 2 and then move on or not. So I applaud you on that. And I'm asking just to see what scientific method stuff you might have gone through. And again, this isn't a gotcha sort of thing, but it's an important thing to kind of just talk about how this whole year has left out the scientific method. And when you do take even high school, but when you take college and the university level, things that have to have proofs in them. And I mean proofs in the calculus sense, where you have you posit a theorem or a theory or a hypothesis, and you have to prove it. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff there that I think I don't expect every American to walk around taking calculus, but even high school math sometimes could do us a little better if people understood that the word theory doesn't mean what it's used to mean, which is like this floating idea that no one knows. It's said that way because there's an acknowledgement in science that you will adjust and change and look at this thing from a 360 sort of a thing. And that's true in biology and biochemistry and in physics, in all these things. So that's just a note to kind of say, as you say, you're doing your research, you're looking stuff up. I would just ask if there's anything you get out of this 2 hours or whatever we're going to spend. Maybe look up people like Michael Osterholm, okay? Because before he worked for the Biden, or he's on the board of advisors, he was a university expert, researcher, PhD guy with a lot of knowledge about zoonotic diseases. There's a great interview with this guy on Joe Rogan, actually. If you look up Dr. Michael Osterholm, Osterholm, and I think that's a great one because Joe Rogan, of course, is by this guy being on Joe Rogan, a whole bunch of other people who are skeptics of the mainstream might watch it and find out some stuff. So those are a couple thoughts. Backing up, you said 15,000 deaths in the USA from the vaccine. That's correct? Am I right? Did I write down your correct assertion?
That's what is on the VAERS website, or on Open VAERS is an easier way to access.
Okay. So can you send me that link? But I guess people can just look at VAERS and now what when you look
OpenVAERS.com is an easier way to access that.
Sorry? I didn't hear that.
OpenVAERS.com.
Open VAERS. So that's not the VAERS actual website. Who runs Open VAERS? Who runs? Is that part of the CDC too? Open VAERS. I know about VAERS. Oh, it's breaking up.
From.
Oh boy, what a shame. We don't have a
report.
Check, folks. I don't know if
we're using OpenVAERS.com.
Okay, now I can hear you. I'm sorry, folks. We're just having bad internet there. Open VAERS, I'm just looking, and folks, I'll put the link in see, one of the things, and I go to some of these chats of anti-vax people, and I'm going to say, and this is one of the few critical things I'll say, in those anti-vax circles, they don't often put links to CDC reports, NIH reports from University of London or MIT or Yale Medical or Nature magazine or the Israeli Board of Health or the German, I can't remember the title of it, but the German, essentially, NIH. I find that in those groups, it's always like this fringe stuff, and let's look at both of them. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm an advocate of this particular vaccine because we're in a nightmare situation, and I'm still going to put these other things. So Open VAERS, you weren't able to tell me who runs it. Can you were breaking up though, and I was asking you, who is Open VAERS? Is that CDC? Is it not? Is it some dude in a basement? What's Open VAERS by your
I'm not exactly sure who manages the website, but that is basically is all the information on VAERS. I believe it is associated. I believe it is an extension of them, just an easier way to access it for people.
So you believe it's an extension of the CDC, but you're not sure.
It is. No, it essentially it is. It's not their web. I don't know the details, but I know that information is from the VAERS website.
Okay. So you don't know the details, but you're going to provide what's essentially a detail. But okay. And that's fine. Again, I just want to get to the bottom of how people gather info. So I went to openvaers.com, and it sounds like you have, but it sounds like you haven't gone right to the bottom of their main page, because it says on the bottom of their page, OpenVAERS is a private organization that posts publicly available CDC FDA data of injuries reported post-vaccination. And it even gives a disclaimer. It says, reports are not proof of causality. Wow.
Right.
I've heard that. Well, you didn't say it a minute ago, though. You said, hang on. What we got to do is talk one at a time, and I know we have a delay, but let me finish this point.
Sure.
I mean, now we're moving the goalposts though, because you said, and I won't put words in your mouth, but you essentially said that it's essentially the same info as the CDC, or it's an extension of the CDC. You know, you danced around a little bit. I held you to that, and you're kind of like, well, I didn't really look. Well, right on their page, bro, right on the bottom, it says reports are not proof of causality. They're actually saying, yeah, we have all this stuff up here, but we can't really make a causal link to these things. But have fun on our site. I mean, so it's a private site, so we can take of that what we will. Go ahead, your response to that.
Here's the problem, and this has been from the beginning of vaccine injury, is it's never the jab's fault. It's anything but the jab's fault. This has been an ongoing theme since the beginning of vaccines, because essentially no one isn't injured from injecting that stuff inside of you. So, and checking on some of the fact checkers that, you know, flag when I want to post, they say that they need to do an investigation for every single so-called death or injury before they can say there's a causal relationship. So
well,
now
that's how science works, right?
They can immediately dismiss every death and every injury. Same thing happened in Europe. You know, they have a different system. Doctors were raising alarm, and they come out with this so-called fact. So, well, it's like as if they're asking for a written, you know, testimony from the vaccine saying, yeah, I did it. Like, it's impossible to investigate every single one of these cases. These cases are made from doctors, and these reports should be, you know, warrant for caution.
Of course. A couple things. First off, every vaccine has a warning that includes up to and including death in some of them. Every one of them. I mean, it's one of the reasons I don't go on pharmaceuticals. I'm trying to look for. I had a little instruction sheet from a piece of equipment. I was just going to demonstrate and open it up because it opened up to like a big thing. But we've all bought a bottle of this or that, or picked up a prescription for our mom or something. You know, the one drug I've taken somewhere in the last 20 years, a few dozen times, again, because of my bad back and I'm not exercising enough or something, I'll take some Advil once in a while. It's a new thing for me. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why am I taking Advil? But that's it. I'm at the level where Advil is crazy, you know. And I mean, I have friends, I work with people, I see them in the morning with a Ziploc bag, and it's got over a dozen pills in them. And I go, oh my God, my dear friend, how did your life get here? One drug for diabetes, another drug to counter the side effects of that drug, another one for the blood pressure, another one for and then the Coumadin, and this one and that one, and anti-gout. And I'm going, oh my God. So I'm with you on all that. You know, having said that, every drug has a big pamphlet in there that says, here are the dangers. In 1 out of 73 million, or might be 1.5 million if it's a more intense drug. I'll still take 1.5 million odds, you know, but for certain things. But every one of these, so I get confused when y'all, and I say y'all, and notice I haven't lumped you in very often because I don't want to do that. You're an individual. But once in a while,
and I try to focus on one controversial topic for a lifetime.
Yeah. But once in a while, I'll speak in the collective, just like just like you could speak about me in the collective of natural foods people or vegetarians or whatever. But I will say that I think there's often a skipping over that big evil pharma has warnings in these vaccines. Every one of these vaccines, we were told two things that everyone's ignoring now. We were told this vaccine will give you, and it's a range, 92%, 95%. It varies based on which of the three vaccines. But let's just say in the mid-90s. Let me pick 93% as a just as an average, okay? Sidebar to people. It's an average of kind of the three, J&J, Moderna, Pfizer. They said to us on day one, 93% of you will get protection from even catching this. So what that means for a math-challenged America is 7%. Sorry, it's just not going to work for y'all. You are probably going to catch COVID if you expose yourself to it a number of times. So I remember a lot of people seem to not have been watching this in January. They said, we've got these vaccines, they're rolling out, but while they're rolling out and while we're building herd immunity, you still have to be careful. You still have to be masked up in public spaces, supermarkets, whatever. Because especially 7% of you are not going to be protected. And then they also said, of that 7% who catch it, if you've been vaccinated, you have another around 93, 95% chance that you will not get extreme symptoms. Both of those have shown to be exactly what's happening. Most people with the jab do not catch the virus, which is why the cases are finally going down, and they're up in unvaccinated areas. And people who catch it still, most of them with a vaccine, 90-some%, do fine. Yes, that other 7% gets sick. Some of them die. But I'll shut up and get your answer now. But I'm making the case that Big Pharma tells us that these things have a danger associated to them. But you're kind of, your implication is that that's news, that someone dies or has an adverse reaction. Talk to me about that.
Well, first, did you get informed consent about you did your own, I mean, I would hope that you did your own research. And if it was their research, it wasn't really based on anything good.
Well,
see,
okay,
what
so
happened
you asked the question, so let me answer your question. Yes, I did my own research. And again, it's okay. I'll say it as many times as I need to. I started looking up vaccines. That's okay. That's okay. No.
You.
It's
a
a
better
great
question was, you think they're giving informed consent to most of these people?
Yes,
when they should be.
Because the warning label, as it were, which was the warnings, were in the news, were publicly available. And when you go to get your shot, have you been vaccinated?
Oh, we probably have new listeners, right?
Yeah.
From what I know, vaccination is a misnomer because virology is fraud.
That's just. Can you just tell me yes or no? I mean, with all due respect.
No, I haven't let anybody inject me with anything.
Okay, awesome. We can tack all the other views of it on as we go, but it's a simple answer. So, and I ask you that because when you go, oh my God, it was like a 5-person process. They give you a couple of sheets of paper to sign and release. And right on there, which you'd know if you got the shot, it says, by taking this vaccine, you are acknowledging the risks of not only all pharmaceuticals, and in fact, a lot of herbs. Again, I'm a professional who has sold a lot of plant-based foods, herbs and supplements and vitamins and compounds, and I've had people get sick on stuff. There's people who get sick on some alcohol-based extracts or having some sort of a flower allergy, so echinacea got them nauseous, or they couldn't deal with black walnut hulls. So people react to all kinds of substances, right? I have a friend, I think he's watching now, who's allergic to onions. He can't have onions. Do we ban onions? Do we call onions poison and start a bunch of blogs about it? No. We just admit that statistically, some humans will respond to any given substance. Peanuts, even worse, right? Big amount of peanut allergies. Do we stop using peanuts? No, they're a healthy legume. We call it a nut, but it's really... So you see where I'm going. So when you go to get the shot, which I did, you start out and you sign some stuff, and you go to another table and you give that paperwork in, and they give you some other stuff, and you fill it out. You have your info, and a number of times you are made clear, and they give you stuff to take away too. At least where I went, like a one sheet, just saying these vaccines are new to humans, and against what you've been saying, they were massively tested around the globe. We just did it faster than ever before because it's 2020 and we have more computers than we did even in 2019. But certainly,
Well, what they did
years
was an
before.
interim analysis
Yep.
2/3 of the way through. And I know with Moderna, they really only examined about 46 people. Now, people are actually
Send me that. That's a major thing to say. Send me evidence that Moderna only looked at 46 people or 47, whatever you said. That's a huge charge.
No, I know they say they studied what, like 40,000, but I believe I'm pretty sure when they did the interim analysis, they only looked at gosh, it's at least under 200.
Oh, so now it could be 199. It was 46 19 seconds ago, but now it's 199 or under 200. Or
I'll get it to you. I'll get to
Nate,
let me focus on. I know.
With all due respect, on the meta level,
they shouldn't even be calling these vaccines.
I know, but you shouldn't.
And they don't promise people any sort of immunity.
I understand.
They didn't
that's
test
your
these.
opinion.
They didn't test these for contagion or transmission. They studied them for a change in one.
Yeah.
They studied them to try to prove a decrease in 1 or 2 cold symptoms.
Well, yeah, that's your analysis of. But do you see though when you're faced with someone who's going to ask you 46 people and then you change it to 150 or 175 or under 200, right? I'm just picking numbers under 200, which is what you said. Do you see though where some trust can erode on the next thing you might say? Do you see that?
Yeah, I get them mixed up, the Moderna and Pfizer. Sorry about that.
And it's okay, my friend. Again, I'm not the guy who's going to yell and scream and call you different names and insult you. I'm not. It's sincere. And anyone who's...
I mean, you're right. I should have better notes.
Anyone who's watched my show knows this. But I'll also
They didn't do their interim analysis based on the 40,000. It's definitely, whether it was Moderna, that it's 46 or the Pfizer, it's a small group of people.
Yeah. Well, again, you
within those two, I know my details are a little off, but I'm not going to lie. I'm not telling you any lies.
Send me evidence to that. Send me where you've read that Moderna just used a couple dozen people to make their conclusions, because I'd like to read that, and so would my audience.
Within those two, real quick before I forget, because these are important parts. 17%, between 17% and 22% or so. And I'm not off by a lot if I'm off just a hair, but had severe adverse reactions just in those trials. And at least 20 people died just between Pfizer and Moderna's in the 2 month trials. And we absolutely, of course, have no long-term safety data whatsoever.
Well, of course,
I mean,
and
just
we
within 2 months, 20 people died.
We couldn't have long-term safety data, and it's kind of absurd to demand it in an emergency. That's the whole thing. I think that's one of the things I keep bringing up. That the perspective of the anti-vaxxers is.
And I don't want to.
Can I finish?
I know some.
You got to not cut me off though. But
you
got to not cut me off. I'm really trying to not cut you off, and you got to let me finish. I'm saying that one of the meta perspectives in this discussion, this one and others I have, is that there's an urge to not call this the emergency it is. We haven't had this happen in a century. I mean, I'd be with you if every 3 years the FDA and the NIH and they're trying to feed us things at this level, right? Of course they are. They're trying to feed us heart disease drugs and blood pressure drugs and drugs for gout. I'm in agreement there. And the Wymans just forget that that's my life, and it'll always be that I'm highly critical of, yes, the everyday drumbeat. I mean, I make a list actually on my phone of commercials, and I don't watch much TV at all, and I watch kind of Hulu and Netflix and stuff. So I'm not even watching network TV that much, and the amount of drugs, I write it down. I can't believe the amount of drugs. I'll just hold it up to the. Look at this, just drugs, and so I'm with you that it's a nightmare. This is different because all 20-some countries, all 220-some countries on planet Earth have been impacted. So that's what gets me frustrated, that no one can kind of hold both thoughts, which is we could be really critical of pharmaceuticals and their everyday attempt to ram stuff down our throats, right? Antidepressants, anticoagulants, blood pressure drugs, on and on and on. Instead of, folks, take your health and, build it yourself. We can hold that thought at the same time as saying, yeah, but this one is a once in a century nightmare, emergency. So you send me, please, a link that says that 20 deaths happened and 70% of the people had bad effects. I'd like to see that. I'll also Google it. And anyone else that has this info, Elizabeth, Jen, if you're still here, help him out. Put that info in the link. Question for you, Nate. What does zoonotic mean?
I was trying to send some links finally because I literally didn't hear anything you said because the computer's so slow.
Yeah, your computer, your audio is your audio is a little. It's all right, man. You got a connection that's bouncing around. Did you hear that question? What does zoonotic mean? What does that word mean? Do you know how to? Do you know that word? First of all, I'll write it down. Do you know what that means?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, that's a question for you. I'll hold the word up to the camera. This word, do you know what that means? Without.
Well, yeah, viruses, associated with animals or came from animal.
Fantastic. I always ask that because a lot of times people don't know that word. I applaud you because you're in somewhere like the 30 or 40 percentile when I ask anti-vaxxers. More than half do not know, the situation. And that's what makes this virus a little special, like swine flu, like avian flu, like a couple other things, like MERS, like Ebola. The fact that it's very difficult for us is it's crossed the line from animal to human. The one 100 years ago, too, the swine flu, very difficult to deal with. And you mentioned before, like, well, they don't see certain symptoms in animals. Well, yeah, because they're animals, and in many cases, some things don't make them sick at all.
But we're blaming it on a particle that we want to make a vaccine for and a test for, correct?
Right.
So you have to
It's not a particle. It's a virus. It's much more complicated. It's an organism. That's the proper word. But yeah, go ahead. It's not a particle.
Well, technically, viruses aren't a living organism.
They're right on the borderline. Yeah, but let's say it's a biological entity. Can we agree on that?
But here's the thing, man. Like, before you can go and claim that there's a pandemic, right? You have to have a test for it. Now, before you have a test for it, you have to show that this thing is the thing that's causing disease. Now, you're saying, yeah, we're in a state of emergency, but that's partially I would say the majority of it, just like HIV, they created a test, then they sold everybody AZT. You need to have proof that this particle or virus or exosome or extracellular vesicle
entity of some sort, yeah.
Right, whether it was created in a lab or can truly be isolated from human tissue without being cultured, and we're getting into some other stuff. But you got to have that proof before you can make a test.
Sure.
Scare the entire population. Now, just talking about the test for a second, I mean, even if you think that they made these tests based on a viral genome, that I got to admit, they pieced this genome together from a very I'd call it a fraudulent bat virus genome, G13, which has problems alone in itself. They took some of that genome with the old COV1, and they pieced this thing together. Okay, and they never really proved. They never proved that this is. So we don't have a SARS-CoV-2. I know, but
Yeah.
that's the heart of this thing.
Yeah.
Even if
You
even if
know
your
it's a
test
big
was
jump,
based
but it's
on,
still okay.
it's not a jump, it's the science, but people aren't ready to accept
Oh,
all that.
okay. All right.
People aren't ready to accept that what we've been taught from a young age is really needs to be put in question.
So,
And I'm
well,
talking among
yeah.
circle.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
This whole thing that it's okay. Just say there was a test for SARS-CoV-2, right? Say there actually was.
so
Do you know
let
how
me
many
let me ask you
problems
though.
there
Let me
were
before you.
alone with that test?
Okay. Well, let me ask you though. In the hundreds of millions of cases around planet Earth, I think it's in the billions or low billions out of 7 and change billion people on Earth. In all of the countries, in all of the health departments, when they have someone who has the symptoms of full blown COVID, they're in ICU, they're in a hospital, and they do tests on them. They do blood tests, sputum tests, they do other fluids they look at. And you're saying when they find your lungs and your respiratory system filled with this virus, what is that then? That's just
You know
a
what's
hoax
interesting
or
about
what?
this new phenomenon? No, I don't believe. I don't dismiss that there is a new phenomenon, and it can always be associated, or I believe we have enough evidence for to prove causality. But the thing with viruses is association. I seems to be enough to try to claim that it's a viral pandemic. The interesting thing about
But it's not
with
just
this new, there
association.
is a
But
new.
it's not. Hang on, hang on. That's it. You're just making assertions. It's not just an association. They're looking at the biological path of moment of infection. What happens in a week? What happens in 2 weeks? What happens in 3 weeks to that human who has been infected? And so,
What's happening is it's infecting both lungs, or infecting, I say, affecting, not
yeah,
infecting,
sure.
affecting
Yeah.
both
Mm-hmm.
lungs, which is
Yep.
not, in so-called viral, pulmonary, so-called viral infections before that affected the lungs. There's never been something like this before that's affected
Exactly.
both
And
lungs.
yeah. Well,
But
the
it's
bronchitis and other I believe whooping cough and some other pertussis. There's other respiratory diseases that or pathogens that certainly damage both lungs. But yeah, this is all very interesting because I'm hearing just sometimes you have an answer for it, sometimes it's this broader thing. Okay, so going through a couple other things though. Um, I'm almost confused because I've written down so much stuff. Earlier on though, you said
tell me about it.
15,000
I have
Americans
so many
died.
notes and files.
Yeah, but a little earlier
Yeah.
you said 15,000 died, and I mean, what do you ever look at what percentage of the total that is, even if that number is true, because it's on that Open VAERS site, which you didn't know and you assumed was connected to the CDC, right? You use language like, well, it's the same stuff, or it's a branch of them, or whatever you said, and then I pointed out right on the bottom of it's not. So I don't know if that 15,000 deaths is accurate. We don't know, but when you hear that number, what factor of the total do you feel like that is? Is that you tell me what goes through your mind? Because and I say that because people put on condoms, people take birth control pills, and a certain percentage of those fail, right? People put on seatbelts to protect themselves, and a certain percentage of those
Oh,
fail. So when you hear 15,000 dead, let's assume that's
did
an actual number.
did
What goes
a
through your brain? Yeah.
an the amount of cases of anaphylaxis, and although
I'm sorry. Say it again because
really
you're
a
breaking up.
hard estimate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
I have an article. I don't remember whose name or who did it. I'll pull it up for you. I can reread it again. Someone did an analysis to try to get a good estimate, and they used the cases of anaphylaxis. Now, instead of using 99x, they said 41x. Because as I mentioned, they
I'm sorry.
historically.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I
Historically,
do
less
apologize.
than 1% of adverse effects get reported, right, or deaths. But to be generous to the other side, they said 41x, and they use the cases of anaphylaxis, and I
Are you
forget
speaking?
exactly how they to
Are you
get an
speaking to
estimate.
how they came up with 15,000? Sorry to interrupt, but
No, no, no,
I want
no.
to cut to. Okay.
Oh no,
Go,
maybe I'm answering your question wrong. That
yeah.
15,000 was,
I don't.
67 to 85% of those are from doctors. And I think
I said, and maybe you didn't hear me. I said, let's assume, for the sake of argument, that the 15,000 is correct. So you don't have to, come back and tell me, well, here's how they got it,
okay.
because you can't really establish that, and I don't want to sit here and go over the 15,000 any more than to say if it's on openvares.com. I've already shown that, that's just some private site. But I'm willing to be charitable and say, let's use 15,000 as the number. My question,
You want to hear what I think?
My question is, when you think of that,
Yeah.
again, just like when we, use birth control. I keep using that example. I'm trying to think of something else. Or we take something for a headache. It's not going to work for every headache. I'm just asking, what percentage do you feel like those 15,000 deaths are of the total? I mean, do you think about that? Well, it's yes, no. Is your next thought?
With the amount
but
of
that's out of 185 million.
With the amount of pressure to blame everything but the jab, right? With the changing in the reporting.
It's called updating, actually. That's how science works. You get more information, and you change a little bit of what you.
Doesn't mean it doesn't mess up the perception or the reality of things either.
But that's because people have an anti-science aesthetic. If they understood that this is something they're learning as they run at it. This is a fast-moving target. They've learned more faster about a pathogen than any time before in history, because we
came up with scientific reasons for bloodletting too, but those things didn't work out.
well, some would argue they
electroshock therapy. I mean, there's some things we got to grow out of, I'm
wow. What examples?
Sorry.
No, but those are disingenuous examples, because you would find them in a tiny set of incidences in the Western world for a couple of years, and they were done away with pretty quickly. Bloodletting is tricky.
I do compare virology to religion.
Well, okay, bloodletting and leeches and things like that. That gets tricky, because there's a couple selected things where they seem to have worked and helped people. That seems to be going down a whole other rabbit hole, though.
Let's focus.
Boy, it's hard.
The 15,000. You wanted me to guess, or kind of give you an estimate.
Not to guess.
I guess
I'm just asking. When you hear that number, do you ever think, well, it's 15,000, but that's a factor of. I'm just doing quick math. That's a factor of well over 10,000 to the amount that got the shot. So 15,000 as a fraction of 185 million is someone do the math for me. It's 0.0. Let's see. 100,000.
Doesn't matter. You're hurting people for no reason because you don't have proof of SARS-CoV-2 being pathogenic. That's my first answer.
Hang on. It's their choice, though. They've made a choice to take something with 93, 95% efficacy. They've made a choice. So you guys always talk about freedom of choice.
Efficacy at reducing 1 or 2 cold symptoms. And they use a relative risk reduction to cheat.
They're not cold
94.
symptoms, my friend. This is where it starts to go off the rails. People dying
in the trials,
ICUs. Yeah.
In the trials, though, in the drug trials, we'll get back to that. In the drug trials, it was a reduction of 1 or 2 cold symptoms and a positive PCR. The PCR test, RT-PCR, QT-PCR, doesn't matter. They're meaningless.
They were also
people
looking
get
at
hurt in the hospital. This is a serious issue.
People get
people
hurt.
Going to the hospital, having lung problems is one thing.
Yeah.
injecting them with an experimental biological agent that has nothing to do, or and they cannot prove that this immunotherapy will help them
Well,
whatsoever.
not to you.
Is a whole
Not to
nother
you.
thing.
They've proven it to most people in medical science on planet Earth. Sure, there's outliers. There's
These are
people who are going to
estimates.
put.
These are estimates based on bunk tests
people that
or trials, based on junk trials.
Well, that's your, with all due respect, your layperson's estimation of high science, which is happening around the planet in first, second, and third world countries. But I'll say that a thing you're skipping over is the 15,000 deaths, if it is that much, are people who chose, knowing the risks, because it's right there on the paper you signed, they chose to take a vaccine. The other thing that's usually left out is a huge amount of those are people with compromised immune system and older people. Okay, a lot of those deaths are people who were 75 and 85 and 92, and they got the vaccine because they were in great danger of COVID more than the rest of us. So a lot of those deaths lean towards the older side, but that gets kind of skipped over too. So it's just a lot of convenience skipping over. I feel like when data doesn't work. I want to go back. Hold your thought. I want to respect some of the people in the chat, and let's see. I'm seeing some new people jumping in. Gloria Miller's here. Thank you for participating, Gloria. Roger says, damn cancel culture. Yeah. Sweden has lifted all restrictions. Yeah, Jerome, that's great. And again, the only part that's confusing, I should have you on. The only part that's confusing there is, what's your point, right? Because if your point is, I just don't know where you're going with that. Yes, Sweden has, and there's a number of reasons. A, they started out never having the shitstorm numbers that we have in the USA, right, per capita. They made some mistakes with this attempt at herd immunity, and they lost a lot of lives, especially on the older segment because of that. But Sweden has a pretty high level of not only vaccination, but adhering to the months and months of really being careful, wearing the mask, going to places in a safe manner. They've done that kind of science. And so, yeah, of course they're lifting restrictions. A couple countries are, but we're not those countries. It's like trying to compare our gun laws with Australia, which people do every time there's a gun crime. Absurd! We're starting at two different points. We have more guns than humans in the U.S. Australia, it approaches zero in some of the states, in some of the municipalities. There's very few per capita. So we can't. So likewise, Sweden lifting all restrictions. Okay, great. And I've been looking at Sweden for a year and a half. Of course they have, because they've done the work. So I don't know what that means. Likewise, Singapore, where I have relatives, New Zealand, Australia, yeah, they're lifting restrictions too, because they started with really low numbers. Now they have a lot of vaccines. Gloria Miller, thanks for stopping by. And you say that UNEP Global Biodiversity Assessment Report. Okay, we'll look for that. What's UNEP? United Nations something. Reasonable estimate for industrial world Stanley would be 1 billion. Okay, at present, I'm not understanding what that means. 1 billion population. Okay, depopulation should be the highest. Oh, okay. You're saying that there's a goal of 1 billion people on planet Earth. I got you. So this is the Rockefeller, they want to kill us all, and Bill Gates is on tape saying we want to depopulate everyone. I got you. I see where you're going. Depopulation is the highest priority, says Henry Kissinger. I need evidence of him saying that statement. I've seen so many quotes attributed to Kissinger, who I dislike more than most human beings I've encountered that I've never met. Yet, every time I'm sent something on Kissinger, we look it up, and it's like, well, he didn't really say that. So you have to start assuming that. But Gloria, please put evidence of Henry Kissinger saying that. Now you're saying Jonas Salk says the principle is not the sole cause. Okay, Jonas Salk admitted that it's the principle or not, if not sole cause of all reported polio cases. Again, I'd like to see that. I mean, there's polio in the polio vaccine, so there's going to be some percentage. Gloria says, take tincture of dandelion. I love it, Gloria. Maybe you don't know this about me. That's where my career was. That's where I lived and worked for almost 20 years. Natural foods. My late partner was an herbalist, a certified herbalist. So yeah, dandelion greens. I eat them. I've taken the extract. I have black walnut hulls in my house. I have turmeric extract, andrographis. I live that world. Silver iodide. I'm sorry, colloidal silver. So, but sometimes you need more. So okay. So the advanced forms of biological warfare. Okay, so you're just quoting stuff that may or may not be factual. Occam's razor. Yes, thank you. Next planet. 10% of the population was vaccinated from smallpox, huh? Says Dr. Glenn Detman. All right, let's see some evidence of that. All right, well, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of copying and pasting. And ivermectin, I'm happy that it's there. I'm happy that we have that in our toolbox for the early part of having COVID. Fine. Dexamethasone, monoclonal antibodies. Great. Let's use them all. Let's see. Vioxx killed 60,000 people. Yeah. Again, Gloria, it's tiring to have to prove my stance that I'm against Vioxx. I'm against Nexium. I'm against Coumadin, all these things. I say live a natural lifestyle. When you say things, though, like Vioxx killed 60,000 people, here's the problem. You don't state, was that 1 year? 5 years? Because then it's 12,000 a year. Was it 10 years? Now it's 6,000 a year. These numbers, people love to throw this stuff out, and with no numbers mean nothing without a rate. Okay? 60,000 since Vioxx has hit the market? I don't know. But tell me, that's the first problem. The second problem is, as I said to Nate before, every single drug, Vioxx, this one, that one, aspirin, right? Nexium, Pepcid, harmless, well, not harmless, but more benign, things like that. Every one of these drugs. Fasenra, Toujeo, Mavyret, Otezla, Eliquis, Biktarvy, Belsomra, Trintellix, Tecfidera. Tecfidera, boy, get your ass in this house. Tremfya, you too. Quebrextra, Humira, Elmiron. Elmiron, put those car keys down. Skyrizi, Linzess, Epiclusa, Vraylar, Picray, Trelegy, Nuplacid, Latuda, Zofluza, Illumia, Ocrevus. I'm tired of talking to you. Chimzia, Vascepa, Dupixent, Emgality, Imovig, Cosentyx. I'm going to do them all. These are drugs people are taking today in America. Xeljanz, Prolia, Bidurion, Besice, Entresto, Kisqali, Dovato. I like her songs, actually, that Dovato woman. Ibrance, Zofluza, Baclofen, Kylena, Versenio. He had that show, right? Versenio Hall. Rexulti, Palforzia, Mescape. Oh, my God. I can't even read them all. You get the point. All of these have warnings, Gloria and everyone else. Every one of those drugs, even on the TV ad, they say, Rinvoq has been shown to have side effects. Anal warts, diarrhea, high blood pressure, diabetes. Please consult with your doctor. Right? So there's a risk with every pharmaceutical. It's amazing that we have to make that case. So, all right, back to you in a second, Nate. Just let me get to all the questions here. So, blah, 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 blah. All right. Gloria, you're just cutting and pasting stuff now that has no, unvaccinated children died a lot 100 years ago, okay? And I'm with you, Gloria, that we give kids too many shots. Can we meet, my friend? Can we meet in the middle and shake hands? I'm an advocate that people give their children too many vaccines, right? Kids are born and within 2 or 3 years, shot after shot after shot. I don't like that. I think kids need to get out and play in the dirt, get some dirt in their mouths, share a bottle of soda once in a while, get a cold, get something. I'm with you. Natural immunity, I'm concerned. But that also doesn't mean... It doesn't mean that we throw all the vaccines out. Okay. Banning options are great. All right. Okay, thank you, Roger. 0.03%. Maybe even, a factor of 10 above that. I know, way under 1%. Exactly. Sweden had horrible numbers. Yeah, they did, Jerome. Thank you for fleshing out what you were saying. And they did because they took a chance. And who can blame them? And Sweden, Brazil, and many parts of the U.S. said, nah, we're going to go with natural immunity. They got crushed in Brazil. And Sweden had some pretty bad numbers, too. I see. Thank you, Jerome, for rounding that out. And you do see how, when it's one sentence, I don't know which way you're going, bro. And I know you've lived there and you have, a lot of, perspective on how they, operate. I think that's okay. Here's someone who had COVID and yeah. Okay, back to you, Nate. I caught up now. There wasn't any big questions, just a lot of, articles or not even articles. Articles I like. There was unattributed quotes and all kinds of stuff. But let's try to roll back in, and we'll try to wrap up actually in the next 10-15 minutes, Nate. This has been really enjoyable. I invite you to come back again. But
Thank you.
Let me come back with one of my questions, ask you in the form of a question. Were you one of the people who said, well, it's not FDA approved, but then when it was, you still are against it? And if you're not, tell me how the rest of us should process that when a great many vaccine critics, that was their thing. They said every day, it's not FDA approved, not FDA approved, not FDA approved. Bang, it was in early September, I believe it was the date, and then they changed their tunes. Talk to me about that.
There's a lot to be learned from the last meeting they had about the booster shots. And, a couple of guys that worked for the FDA quit that day.
Quit which day? Because you've jumped a month past what I said into boosters. I'm going back, and I don't have the exact date in front of me. It was early September, I believe. I'm going back to the day the FDA approved things. Well, let's break my question apart. Were you one of the ones saying, I'm not taking this drug, I'm not supporting this because it's not FDA approved? Were you one of the people?
The FDA approving something means very little. There's
you don't eat cans of beans? You don't go to a salad bar ever? You don't? Do you eat chicken? Do you
when
eat,
it comes to
broccoli?
drugs, there's somebody that we used to work for the FDA, and I don't have his name. I'll try to get you the quote, but he said
okay.
if you
but how about
knew what went on
question?
at the FDA, the only thing you would take is Tylenol.
Okay, but how about answering my question? There's millions of foods available on the American market. I'm here on my show. I talk about flesh foods. I don't support flesh foods, but I'm confident that at least there's some inspection going on, far less than the rest of the world. But we're right above the level where, okay, whatever, even if it's going through a bleach bath or irradiation or something, at least people are not dropping as soon as they walk out of KFC with a chicken sandwich. So we have some level of safety of food. Would you agree? Especially healthy foods. I buy a head of lettuce and some kale, and I buy scallions, and I buy different vegetarian proteins and stuff with confidence that there's some, even broken, there's some system in place to make sure that and we know there is, because a couple times a year, stores close down, products are recalled because of Salmonella, E. coli, different things, right? Both animal foods and vegetable foods. So don't you eat food when you leave the supermarket or the farm market knowing, hey, you know what? I'm going to give this to my family because we have at least some semblance of a working government that I can trust that, this apple or this chicken breast is safe enough for me to take home and consume. I mean, how do you think that happens without a working regulatory system? And I put an asterisk on the word working.
Well, it'd be nice to imagine that some of it worked.
That's what I'm saying.
The fact
some of
that
it
we
works.
were giving, the tests themselves, the test only had emergency use authorization to create the sort of panic that would convince people we're in an emergency to take a drug that only had emergency use authorization.
Yeah.
And which one got approved?
Well,
Pfizer?
Pfizer's been approved. Moderna is around the corner because
Partially approved.
even though you decry it, they are doing more testing on these than they've ever done for a drug. I mean, there's so much, and partially because we have better computers that can do modeling and that can analyze data coming back from the field faster and better and more complete. Also, for the first time in human history, we're facing a global problem where the whole world is participating. So scientists in Senegal and Japan and Jamaica and England and Germany and France and Switzerland and Russia, scientists in China, for better or worse with all their problems, scientists in Australia, Argentina, all around, they're all contributing to this because they all have outbreaks in their home countries. So it's the first time we've kind of been able to have, and we have the internet, we have all these international medical organizations. They're not perfect. I'm not saying a lot of them don't have compromised economic relationships with drug companies. I'm not saying that. Of course they do. But what I hear all the time that you have not acknowledged, and I hear a lot of people with your beliefs not acknowledge, is the reason it moved so fast. You don't have something to refer to in the past because we've never had a global outbreak in your life, Nate, at this level of infectivity and resultant infection and resultant death. We've never had it. So of course our approach to it and the results are going to be new, and that scares us. Talk about fear. I hear a lot of fear on your side. Like fear, how could they have possibly come up with this so fast? I'm afraid of this. So it must be a scam. And excuse me for being a little cartoonish there, but that's what it feels like. It's a lot of fear. It's fear. They couldn't have come up with this.
We put a lot of trust into these, and what came to mind was this quote that this guy wrote. He says, your genome, like your viral genome, is only so good as your reference genome. Okay, your data going into.
Do you remember who said that? Or
I'm not sure if it was my friend Mike Stone who went through all these papers, and he runs a virology. It's lie, like it's a lie. OG.com.
I gotta look that up. So a buddy of yours who runs an anti-virology site.
Not an anti-vax, a pro-science, anti-pseudoscience. Okay. Let's make a distinction.
I didn't say anti-science.
If you understood,
I said critical of
if
virology.
you understood that virology doesn't conduct, most of it's not reproducible, and they barely ever conduct independent variable controls.
Can you tell me the website
Two
of this guy?
controls have ever been done. Yeah, I sent it over to you.
Oh, good. Okay, good. It's in the in the chat. Okay, here it is. Awesome.
See my stuff.
You're saying the virology lie one?
Nature.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Nature.
I see it now. I see it. Awesome. I'm gonna share that with I'll share that with the crowd. Thank you so much. Plus, it'll just be in my
please do. Yeah,
my chat window forever. Okay, so this is your friend who runs it, or you just know his name, or what? What's his name?
I was doing my own research. Mike Stone. I was doing my own research. Just floating around, typing into New England Journal of Medicine, JAMA, NCBI, PubMed by myself, until finally I ran across some other people who basically knew the whole other side of biology that's not being taught. And there's been a lot of scientists and actual let me bring up something interesting, and I think we can all.
There's people that say the Loch Ness monster exists also, and Bigfoot, and some of them have degrees, but the other 20,000 of them who talk about these on the fringe of zoology. So just because one or two people say something, it just means we give it equal value of the 10,000 saying that's not true?
The
Is that
amount of people that believe a lie is irrelevant.
okay? Okay. All right. That's a tricky methodology because you can get into all kinds of stuff there. There's people that believe the Civil War was fought for culture and for my grandpappy's,
We're
good
talking about
name.
science, though.
Right, but those are just facts that are objective facts in human history. And in other words, we can establish what the Civil War was fought over because we have the letters of secession from the 11 states. So, yes, one's science, one's history, but the procedure's the same. You go out, you look for the evidence. The evidence for why we fought the Civil War is right there in the letters the 11 states wrote. There's a letter from the state house of the governor and the leadership of South Carolina and North Carolina and Alabama and Tennessee, all these states. They wrote a letter to Washington saying, we're out of here. We do not want to be part of your union because we want white supremacy. We want slavery. They said it. And anyone that has never read the letters of secession, it's a fun read. So we have this, and the point I'm making, Nate, is we have a way to prove what it was fought over, yet there's people right now saying, nope, it wasn't that at all. My point being is just because they're dissenting voices doesn't make them equally valuable. But you've said several times now that, well, I've got this dissenting voice, so I'm taking
Here's
that.
the thing, is that there has been a dissenting voice from the birth of the split in science.
Of course.
Okay? Back to Louis Pasteur. He had rivals that I mentioned, Claude Bernard, Antoine Béchamp, and even Florence Nightingale said that the specific disease doctrine is for the weak and uncultured mind, such as now rule in the medical industry. There are no specific diseases. There are only specific disease conditions. Now, there's always been the
that gets into philosophy, and we're getting far afield because to me we should be talking about the more concrete stuff, like how the hell did we get out of this? As Jerome has pointed out, as other people have pointed out, as the USA is proving, vaccines are driving down the infection rate. You can't deny what's happening in California.
It's impossible.
You may. Okay.
Impossible.
So you just did. Okay.
This is all. There's no way that's possible.
Okay. So California is lying about their
like you said, science has changed. The reason that reporting changes or coding changes is because science is developing, but the outcome changes the perception. Okay, so if, like, for example, hospitals were not required to report breakthrough infections to the reporting agencies. Okay, if you're not reporting breakthrough, a breakthrough infection is something they got COVID.
That's been debunked. All of these things that are like they're keeping it secret. They're not.
No, it's not even.
All
it's
those
not
things
that.
have been debunked.
It's not.
Okay.
Whether it was intentional or not is besides the point.
So how do we know? How do we know that there's all these breakthrough? Why did they change and start reporting them? Because
technically there is no breakthrough infection because the PCR test was useless anyways because they don't have it's not detecting said pathogen.
So what test would
for any of this panic?
Is there a test that will find the pathogen? What test? Because there's 3 or 4 that I'm aware of that are popularly used.
That's the core problem, is that PCR since the birth of this, PCR has been used as an excuse as why they can't fulfill the postulates or scientific methods, Koch postulates or the watered down version, Rivers postulates, to prove that there is an existing pathogen causing disease. Now, I know that these words get thrown around.
You say there's no pathogen causing this disease?
Absolutely. They have never proved it.
Okay, all right. That's.
I know that sounds comfort. I know that sounds. There could be a new
Yeah.
change in the environment. Can you
Yeah.
think of any
Everywhere on
ginormous
Earth,
changes
all
to
at
the?
once, and such that it impacted everybody the
Let's look
same
at
way. Yeah. You know.
let's look at Paraguay.
Yeah. I
I
love
know
it. I've been there. Yeah. It's
I'm
great.
gonna touch on something. You
Yep.
know what, Paraguay? Here's the thing. You know how we were talking about hygiene and sanitation
Sure.
being the change of better health?
Yep.
Can you think of one thing? And I hate
Mhm.
to mix these two up, but they really are related.
Okay.
Can you think of one thing that has changed in the environment over the last year, in
Over
our
the last year.
surroundings, in our
Oh,
environment?
well, certainly one big one is, and it's a big concern of mine. We've dropped the incredible amount of air flight and that pollution in the skies, and people have driven less, and that's one thing we see around the globe. Place after place has said, "Oh my God, the smog is gone," and so that's one. I don't know if that's the one you're looking for, but that's my answer. That's one. If you're asking,
Close
why?
enough. We don't have
Okay.
to touch on this one.
Well,
Paraguay. If you
what's
look
the
at
other?
the all
What's
cause,
your answer? Because my answer is one
ah,
of the things, right? Um.
yeah.
Okay. So, well,
If you look
what's
at Paraguay, for example,
yeah?
their all cause mortality. Actually, with every single
They're what?
country's all
Sorry.
cause mortality,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
all cause mortality or
Okay.
excess mortality, um, you see a huge spike in deaths after the introduction of the jabs in
Okay.
every single country. Just about almost every single country, the
Yeah.
majority.
That's again big number that I don't know where you can show evidence for that, but you know, uh, yeah, I don't
Our
know what
world
to
of
say about
data.
that.
I
Okay.
pu- I pulled I pulled
So
Paraguay because I knew that they didn't get any. They went with fiber optics, so they're not getting any more. They're not getting electric smog. And to be honest, if there was something causing a new phenomena, it's not a virus. It's our environment.
so you're confusing me. Is 5G? Is that what you're implying, or what?
5G is just the
Just
fifth
say it. Yeah.
generation.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you asked me a
Electric
question. Yeah.
smog.
Electric
We call
smog.
it, it's
So
called electric smog.
so
You're water and
Paraguay.
you're
Okay.
electric.
So yeah, I've read a lot about electromagnetic pollution, and I've read so much down that road of HARP and
Yeah,
emissions
you know
from
about the. And you
cell
know about
phones and
the
yeah. Go
what was it?
ahead.
Over 200 scientists appealed the United Nations in April of 2020. I mean, this really shouldn't be
Saying what?
taboo. That
Saying
that if we roll this, that if they
electromagnetic.
allow,
Yeah.
the amount will be like
Okay.
400 times more than in
Sure.
2019.
Yes.
I
I
mean,
heard all those warnings.
I think people are
So,
crazy to think that that
so
doesn't affect their body.
we probably agree on that because it's environmental pollution. But are you making the case that Paraguay is the only out of 215 or
I
20
like to use it
nations?
as an example. Well,
Okay,
here's the thing.
but you can't use examples that make no sense. Let's carry it all the way through. You're saying Paraguay. Are there other countries that went fiber optics and not 5G?
Yeah, there are a few. I don't
Oh,
know
okay.
which one. I don't remember which ones,
Okay.
but I I
And
know
those
Paraguay
countries
did.
all have a commensurate difference in cases. Are you saying that?
No, actually, when you look at big data like that, it is a little difficult because technically, when
Yeah.
mistreating people, we know that ventilators were not the right treatment.
Well,
Somebody's
I know, but
suffering
that's
from
because earlier
oxygen
on, yeah,
deprivation, and we send them to the hospital to get ventilated,
because they were
which 9
figuring,
out of 10 people survive a ventilator.
yeah, but you got to
It's
acknowledge,
the wrong treatment.
yes, and then they acknowledged that and they adjusted the treatment because it was a brand new ailment, a brand new virus, a brand new pathogen. So they were like, "Fuck, what do we throw at this?" Okay, it's respiratory. And then they realized, you know what? It's actually more glandular because it's affecting livers, hearts, kidneys, it depends on the person. It's a wild virus. It keeps moving around. Some people get a whole other thing from it. Then you have long COVID, which is actually huge numbers, people who survive, but then they have pick and choose. Some people have seen hair loss.
I think
Others
it's
have
very.
seen, you know,
That
yeah,
was a
go ahead.
big you just touched on something that kind of opened up something for me when doing all this research. Because the cases of people getting COVID twice or the symptoms twice, right? Kind of it does two things. It kind of dismisses this idea that you create this immune memory, right? It at least attacks that theory, okay? Because
It
that is
doesn't.
a theory.
Well,
If you're getting,
a
you're
couple
supposed to
things
get,
to that, because
antibodies and grow immunity, right? The other thing it does, real quick, the other thing it does is open you up to the idea that, diseases are not viral or bacterial. This is our environment. Yeah, of course. If you're continuously drinking polluted water, you're going to get sick more than once. You know what I mean? So that opens up terrain model a lot. And I think
but there's hardly an American. Yeah, there's hardly an American who's not exposed at some point to tap water with its chlorine and fluorine and all these other things. So that just spins off. Oh my God, it really does. Okay, I wanna bring this in for a landing, and I'll address that, and I'll say, lots
there's
of
a lot
people,
of things that affect our.
Yeah, and lots. You threw a couple of things there that don't necessarily have a backing, because the people who have gotten COVID, there's a lot of them have died. A lot of them have not in the percentage. It's actually a single digits death rate after you catch it, which is great. The problem is 1% of 330 million Americans is what? Real quick, what's 1% of the American population? My only quiz that I'm giving you, really.
Wait, what's 1%
of the U.S. population? Yeah, of the American population. What's 1%?
Oh, what do we have here? 30 million. So
well, you tell me. Don't Google it. You should know the U.S. population if you're making arguments against.
We have around 300 million. 300 million in America, right? Something like that.
Well, you tell me what the approximate population is, and what's 1% of that, without using a calculator, because you're making an argument that, to me, would need to have in
3.3 million or so.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's about right. Now, that's not 1% of what you said, so you obviously just looked that up. But we have the
No,
census.
I didn't look it up.
Okay.
I'm terrible with math. I'm not a data junkie.
That's not data junkie, though. That's really basic math that someone with a couple degrees should be like that with. And again, I know some people are going to go, that wasn't nice. You're holding him to numbers. But you're here to argue your point on a statistical event called a pandemic. So the basics. But what your guess for American population was 30 million, which is not even California. And then it was 300 million, which is getting close. According to the recent census, which who knows how fucked up that was, but it's 330 according to the recent census. What's interesting is you said 300, but then said 1% is 3.3, which says to me you looked up the 3.3, which is fine. But
No. I remember. I actually remember. How did I look? I can't look at anything up right now. My computer will freeze.
All right.
I just remember.
Either way, that's fine.
330 million.
You have the right ballpark in your mind, though. My point being is, if this is a thing that's going to kill even 1% of people, I'm not comfortable with 3.3 million Americans dead. Are you? Just so we can not have vaccines and prove herd immunity and prove all these things? If it's only 1% deadly, my friend.
Here's a good question. How come 1%. Natural immunity is being left out of this? Right?
Well, it's not. I mean, it's talked about all the time. I know. No, it's not. It's not left out. Every time
natural immunity is. Well, it's for it is in a way. It's not completely left out, but they're dismissing it.
Oh, but you just said it was, yeah. So again, you get to move the goalposts whenever.
Some people are talking about it, but no. They want to inject everybody, and if you technically immunity
it's your choice. It's
injected or natural.
Yeah, it's your choice.
But
it's your choice.
How come they are not? Well, yeah, it definitely should be your choice to get injected.
And it is. It totally is. We're running out of time, but let's do this again in a couple weeks because we didn't even get to the mandates and the forcing and stuff. Because it's your choice. You don't have to get a vaccine, and you haven't, and I respect your choice.
Let's hope it is. I hope for people that are working,
It is so far. Yeah.
that it stays a choice, because this is,
Okay.
I mean, this is, they're trying to mandate it on a lot of workplaces, and
well, okay, that's still a choice. You don't have to have that job. There's no constitutional guarantee for any particular job. Likewise, there's jobs that mandate steel-tipped toes, jobs that mandate other vaccines. There's many jobs that say you've got to have a tetanus vaccine to work here.
Steel-toe boots are gonna kill you.
Well, I gave other
negatively affect your health.
Nate, you got to be honest. I'm being honest with you. I went from boots, which is just one example, to make the point. I'm not comparing steel-tip boots to a vaccine. I'm saying a boss of a private entity can demand whatever they want for what they deem safety. And I went immediately.
But would they if the
government
wasn't pushing them to?
Yes. I've worked at a couple corporations. One was a power company, so I worked in power plants. And yes, it's a mix because there's OSHA and there's things that, yes, the government says, yeah, you can't have X amount of particles of inhalable dust or metal particles or something. You have to install this equipment or that equipment in this work area so that your workers are not inhaling asbestos or metal particles or coal dust or anything like that. So it's a mix of governmental and just smart business. But you responded to the steel-tip boots without listening to the whole thing I was saying, because I then went into a lot of businesses. That's okay. A lot of businesses, it might be safety stuff. Again, steel-tip boots, hard hats, gloves, different things because you're exposed to. But they also, tons of corporations, businesses, schools, universities, food production, whatever it might be, mandate that you have a measles shot, a smallpox shot, other host of shots, and in some cases, if you're working in certain conditions, a tetanus shot. They will check you on these things. So the idea that you're mandated to do things, I still cannot hear a straight answer as to what's so unique about that. You're mandated all kinds of things to have a job.
I went to the pharmacy, pharmacy at my local grocery store. I saw a woman leave there after getting her injection in a hospital, or in an ambulance. I knew that what they would give me. I said, "Do you have any information on the jab, on the COVID vaccine or immunotherapy?" They printed me out something that I'd already read. If you would read that, you would read that they cannot promise you. And they word it so they word it kind of nicely. But any immunity or any health benefits. How long will immunity last? They don't know, which means that that's the nicest way of saying you might as well not even put the word in there.
You're mixing a few things. Be honest with me right now. Do you remember me saying exactly that? Over an hour ago, I pointed out that
it's a total risk, man.
This is a yes or no. Do you remember me
saying?
No health benefit.
I remember talking about it.
What? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you remember me saying? And I spent a lot of time on this. Do you remember me saying that every vaccine manufacturer, focusing on the 3 that are in the U.S., there's 6, 7, 8 others around the world. Do you remember me saying that each of those 3, and by extension, all these drugs that people take, say, we're not guaranteeing this works. We can't. A guarantee is 100%. We're telling you 93%, 95%, a number that's actually falling because of the pool of non-vaccination in the total population. But do you remember? So a woman leaving with ill effects, I struggle for what point you're trying to make. Yes, some people will have bad effects. And they say that to you when you go in there and you go, all right, I have to sign this. Okay. They tell you, they say, hey, you have a 7 in 100 chance that you might get sick from this. So I just get confused when
There's a
you guys
giant
keep.
leap.
What's that? Say again.
Well, I don't think they have, have you seen the list of all the adverse effects from the
Yes,
FDA
yes,
document?
yes. Because I
Of
actually
course you have.
read about this
Because the
stuff.
image is banned from Facebook. You can't even post the image on Facebook.
Oh, okay. Well, I've read it. I've
Right?
read it. I've read it
But
on other
that's not in
websites. But
there.
yeah.
In,
Well,
in the
Facebook's not a
giant
great.
jump,
Yeah.
yeah, they suck. But
It's not a giant. It's not a giant jump for me or anyone
here it is. Well,
or anyone who has looked at the vaccines from the beginning.
because you guys don't have enough information.
I'm just telling you that
If
we
you
have
knew that
information.
the tests were
Yeah.
useless, if you
Yeah.
knew that
So
the tests were
you're
not
jumping to something
identifying
else now.
even fragments of a specific virus that doesn't exist or hasn't been proven pathogen, if you knew that all the tests, look, I mean, even with a 85% false positive rate, there is no positive rate. You're still, even with that being said, you have a massive amount of unnecessary fear that would convince people
there's a lot of
to
fear.
go and try to be a lab rat. To be a lab rat. These PCR are not identifying a pathogen, especially one that they have a cure for. So there's the giant leap of faith that people that are getting injected with this stuff are taking.
Yeah, I didn't take that leap, so I don't, maybe some people did, but again, I'm concerned that you present as evidence
it's
things
unfortunate.
like
this is
let me finish.
Is a huge problem.
Let me finish. I'm concerned that you present as some kind of anecdotal evidence a completely anecdotal story. I was at a pharmacy once and I saw this lady without recognition that that's as anecdotal as it gets. That's one person in a country with 100.
I can be personable occasionally.
Can I finish? Can I finish? Because I can't hear you. If you hold that thought, without any kind of weighting of the data and saying, "Hey, I saw that one person. I do understand that was one of somewhere around 185 million people, and so I can't make a conclusion on that one person, but it's what I saw." Like, I don't see any recognition there of the numbers that we're up against. Now, go ahead. What were you saying? Because I couldn't hear you. I was speaking, but go ahead.
The truth is that we're not against any real numbers, because the PCR test, with or without proof of a virus, even if they had proof of the virus, even if this PCR test was detecting fragments of a genome that they pieced together, okay, even if they had that, these tests would still be turning out false positive. It was a coin flip either way. What people need to realize is that these tests that gave us these COVID numbers, that they even built assumption models of spread on top of that, it's just the uptick where they're literally taking the false positives, putting those into an estimate of a rate of infection, and that just, I mean, snowballed to the, that's what half of the numbers we were looking at. They weren't even, I mean, they've literally, okay, you have a test, right? Then you have some numbers. Then you can take those numbers and put them in a computer and add what you think the spread will be, and there you have your uptick projection. Sometimes that's what we were looking at. I mean, it was like and I realize that they think they're doing the right thing. I understand that epidemiologists think that they're
what
trying
do they
to help.
know? I mean,
but
it's
the
just
fact
epidemiologists, but what do they know?
No, they're professionals at computer modeling, but these are assumptions, these are projections, and not only that, if it was all scientific, I'd be like, wow, that's really awesome. But the fact is the PCR test is not fit for the purpose. Even Kerry Mullins, the inventor, said that. And I know that his name got brought up so many times that he got crapped on, but he was,
it's called
he went through
debunked.
this with Fauci. No, he wasn't. He's the inventor of the PCR test.
Yeah, but a lot of
they took his technology.
Well, okay,
They took his technology and they used it for what they would.
Yeah.
For what they were gonna. He warned us. He told us they were gonna do this.
Yeah, but a lot of his assertions have been debunked. You know, a lot of his points have been shown to be false.
Send me some of those fact checks on Kerry Mullins.
Sorry?
I'll debunk them. One of my favorite hobbies, if I get the time to, is I like to go through the fact checks and debunk the debunkers.
Yeah, and you know that's hang on.
Their answers are. You want anecdotal? You read some of those fact checkers. Those are anecdotal.
But it's okay for you to drop an anecdotal story. Can I answer?
You get some good stuff out of there too. Well, I wanted to tell a story. It was,
I know, but you used it.
Make it personable
to advance. But you used it to advance the point. It only works if you couch it with, and you know what? That was just me in a pharmacy one afternoon. I know that we're talking about a field of 185 million people, but a
lot of people
hang on,
Nate,
hang on, because I let you interrupt me a bunch. I just listened to your whole non-answer to me, and I didn't interrupt you. So let me respond now. I asked you very clearly. I said, when you think of that one woman that you saw anecdotally, or even if you think of 1,000 of them that you read about somewhere, I asked you this repeatedly. Do you instantly say, yeah, but that's out of 185 million? So I've really got to weigh that and say, yeah, this makes it's like when someone finds a bug or a piece of glass in a McDonald's shake. That's a horrible thing for that one person. Horrible, horrible, horrible. I'm not downplaying it. But it's in the background of billions and billions of these shakes being delivered to a customer. So it's a small risk. I asked you, though, about if you're looking at the 185 million, and you went off onto a thing about the PCR and the test and all that. So, again, it's not the question I asked. So it just gets...
One person, let me answer your question.
Sure.
One person getting hurt from these injections was too many.
Yeah. I agree.
One person getting
I agree
hurt from
philosophically, but we'd have nothing, my friend. We wouldn't have. So by your logic, let's ban peanuts tomorrow.
No, they don't have proof of a virus. That's why injecting somebody.
No, you're not even listening to me. You're not even listening to me. By your logic, let's ban the sale and consumption of peanuts tomorrow morning, because you just said just one person being hurt is too much. We can't have that. It's that's where my bar is, and I'm saying
peanuts are from nature.
So then
peanuts
it's okay.
are from nature, man.
Okay. So,
I mean the amount of ingredients that go into an mRNA injection.
So which you haven't looked up, I'm sure. So let's change your assertion then. So what you really
I have the ingredients here
okay.
somewhere.
So, all right, that's a little flippant on my part. I apologize. But let's say that your real assertion then is one. Well, let me. Can I speak? Your assertion is one death is unacceptable as long as it's not a natural product. Is that correct? So you're okay that people die from aflatoxin responses and in the extreme, in a small number that I'm not really concerned about, versus the rest of 7 billion people having access to peanuts. But to hear you correctly,
if you knew that 22, if you knew that 22% of the population was going to have a severe reaction to peanuts, would you make it compulsory? Would you mandate it compulsory?
Well, first off, first off, well, let me answer. Let me answer the thought exercise. Let me answer. First off, no one's making the vaccine compulsory. You have a choice, but if you make the choice, you pick door number 2. You're not going to go to a public school soon, just like you can't if you don't get measles, mumps, rubella. That's what's amazing about this, is that you already can't go to a public school if you're hardcore anti-vax. And I love that we have freedom of choice in America. You'll go to a private school. You'll go to a religious school. You'll homeschool. I love choice. You don't get to be with the 1,000 student or with the 56-year-old substitute teacher. You've made a choice. No one's forcing. No one's making you do it. You also don't get to go to see David Byrne on Broadway or to see that concert or this one. Kid Rock comes through. Guns N' Roses comes through.
I want to ask you a question real quick.
Sure.
If in the next few years you hear about some court trials going on to sink the entire field of infectious disease and virology, will you be surprised?
Not really. I mean,
Not surprised
nothing.
anymore.
No. I'm hard to surprise. I'm hard to surprise. No. Especially in one of the most litigious nations on earth. So no, I'm not.
Do you know in
Yeah.
South Africa they were taking the existence of SARS-CoV-2 to court?
I did remember they had some wild stuff in South Africa, but I'm not really going to trust all the decision making that goes on in South Africa. So, that could go either way. Yeah. All right, I'm going to bring this in for a landing. This is one of the longest shows I've had. I'm just going to see if there's one or two last questions. But Nate,
I love
it's
talking with you.
Yeah.
Even though you're tough, you're a little tough. But I've never
No,
been through one of these, so I didn't really know what to expect. You're not tough, but
Well,
you
I'm
want
asking.
me to have my stuff ready to go, and I need
How
a
about
faster
that?
computer.
And one of my overall points is, and I think I said this early on, so people that disagree with me can go check my words early on in this broadcast. I hold the left and progressive people and Democrats to the same fire, which is you make a big mistake never looking at dissenting info you don't like, info from people you disagree with. Okay? I dislike Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro and Glenn Beck, and I dislike them greatly. But I hold my breath and find out what they're saying once in a while. Candace Owens, Larry Elder, who just ran in California, if we want to look at the long list of black conservatives who voted for Twitler. But I listen. I say, all right, I'm not going to enjoy this, but let's roll up our sleeves and let's listen to some other side. One of the things I hope you take from this is you haven't heard the tough questions or asking for the evidence or asking for a logical train because you're probably just talking to people, mostly, who already agree with you. It's that simple, and that's true on both sides. And we need to break that up a little bit. That's all. Because, again, I said this at the beginning, and I'll say it again. I respect anyone questioning a new way of doing a vaccine. This messenger ribonucleic acid based medicines, which are different. And that's the thing the
Sounds
pro-vax
fancy.
people... Sorry?
It said it sounds fancy, but
It sounds fancy. It sounds fancy, and I think
the government's had to go up against the pharma about gain of function studies before.
Yes, and not only
this
is it
has
sound,
been the work.
not only is it sound science fiction, and it kind of is, using nanotechnology to design a vaccine with messenger RNA.
It's just more invasive.
That sounds like the Matrix to me. I know, but my problem is the vast majority of people not getting their vaccines, driving up the numbers in these red states. They're eating a hot dog and a diet Mountain Dew right now. So
Colorado's got like a is it? I forget which town in Colorado has like a 99% like vaccine rate.
Okay.
And they got cases picking up. And here's the thing.
Well, because there's always
you know what I forgot
cases,
to mention?
But there's far less than there is somewhere in Alabama that doesn't have many vaccines. Yes.
Here's the problem.
Okay,
is
ignore
they
that
are
point
going.
now.
This is. No, I'm sorry. Repeat it. No, go ahead.
You made the case that there's some town in Colorado that's 99% vax, which is amazing to me. That's very high, and I haven't heard a number that high. I'll look it up right now. Colorado. Do you remember the name of the town?
I just saw the headline today.
Where?
And
on Glenn Beck or vaccineareshit.com? Where did you
Fortunately,
find
I got Microsoft. No, I have for some. I should change it, but when I pull up a tab, it's just all Microsoft news.
I'm not saying that it's not true. I'm just saying where'd you source this? I'm Googling right now. Colorado town, 99%. And here it is. So it's a county. It looks like. Oh man, it's one of these news sites that's. As soon as the thing comes up, would you like to subscribe? I can't see the article, but
no.
Okay. Suffice to say, even though I can't see it, San Juan County. So it's a county, and it says they're boasting that 99% of the eligible population is vaccinated. I'm reading around the subscribe shit. What I can't see is what are the infection rates. You know, you're saying lots of cases. What does that mean? Because San Juan County, Colorado, COVID.
Well, I was just, you were saying that it's the unvaxxed creating a problem.
Yes, and I will stand on
There's
that. Yes.
really quick examples to
here's
to kind of counter.
Well, okay. Here's one. Hang on, because we're going with your example. Hang on
at all because they don't have the diagnosis.
So I'm using your example. Just in closing, I pulled up San Juan County that has 90%.
You have screen share.
Here we go.
Wonderful.
Yes. So here's San Juan County. I look at the top of my Google search. San Juan County COVID. To your point, but look at the cases and deaths. 90 cases, 1 death. I think that's great. That starts to sound like places in Australia or Singapore. So it proves that the numbers are down because they've vaccinated a ton of people.
The wrong point.
Say again?
When they changed, you said, I started when I mentioned that the reporting had changed. You said, of course,
but let's
I know that.
Nate, let's stick with your example. You said there's this town in Colorado. It's a county. That's fine though. You said that has 99%. So I pulled it up. It is San Juan County. But taking your point all the way to the end, which is not a popular thing, that 99% rate, look on the right side there. It says cases overview, 90 total cases, 1 death. And they have other counties.
I shouldn't
have
played your game.
What game? What game?
When you say that
the facts,
game that there
actual
are even
numbers,
cases that can be diagnosed.
Yeah. So it works for you. It works for you to bring up. It works for you
diagnosing for a specific virus.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, that's an old technique. Here's a statistic that makes my point.
But
when we,
you know what?
Yeah.
No, you're right. I shouldn't have called you that.
I'm sadly.
What is absolutely certain is that the unvaccinated are not the problem.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it because that's your view. And
there's no such thing as unvaccinated. Jab is not any sort of immunity.
Okay. All right. So California.
Your injection is not providing you any sort of immunity.
Yeah. So the fact that some of these European countries that are starting to open up with low cases going in and the high vaccination percentage and seeing, hey, this is great. Less people every day are coming into our hospitals. Less people every day are coming into the ICU. There were tons just 2 months ago when we didn't have the vaccines and we had high infectivity. But you're saying, nope, they're all just, it's something else. And hey, I will not be able to convince you otherwise, and that's fine. I want to leave it at that because I do have to wrap this up. But
supposedly,
yeah,
our data is totally different than the rest of the world, and it's because of the change of reporting.
Well, also we're the most unhealthy in the whole world.
I mean, Israel is a good example. England is another good example.
I know, but the difference is
there's a lot of variables too.
Okay, give me 2 big variables between Israel and the USA in this. We'll close with a couple global things. Give me 2 things that are different about Israel and the US. Besides, of course, population, but we're talking everything's per capita.
They are reporting hospitalizations, the vast hospitalizations.
Oh man, what a shame that the
something's going
connection is so bad. I know your connection. Try to say it again, Nate. Like, tell me 2 differences with Israel why they may have had way different numbers. In your opinion, I mean, because I think there's 10 things we could look at, but what are your 2 kind of favorites?
they are allowed to report vaccine hospitalizations.
They allowed to what?
Maybe they're testing vaccinated with the same threshold.
Oh, this is a shame that
Here they were not reporting. They're not reporting. The CDC was not recording breakthrough infections from this. The hospitals are required to report breakthrough infections to the reporting agencies.
I'm hearing
just a little bit more honest and not so quick to defend a poison jab. But we know that you're not considered vaccinated until 14 days post jab. That's a fact.
I'm just trying to discern what problems are with audio.
Israel has seen an obvious increase of death and hospitalization since the jab rollout.
It's not odd. It's not odd. That's the thing we keep coming back to. Every vaccine program, and this one's very unique because it's global, says, here's two things. Every single one. And they said it this time. See, one of the problems of the non-mainstream media kind of world is you miss, I'm not saying this is you per se, Nate, but some of your colleagues, is that you miss the big announcements. And the big announcements early on were, hey, we got these vaccines completed. They're going to roll out in 2 weeks. Here's what we know. You'll have a 90-some% chance of protection from even catching it. So right there, they're built into that, yeah, this is not a guarantee. And they also said there's a chance, if you do get it, you'll have very bad reaction. And they said that's weighted for older people, immune-compromised people. I'm going like this because the numbers are higher if you're any of those groups. Obese, immune-compromised, long-term smoker, lupus, MS, all these things, cancer survivor, right? There's a bunch of things that they made very clear. And what I find that a lot of everyone just skips over that part. So Israel, here's what I think is different Israel. Number one, they're much healthier in the aggregate, first of all. Almost every country is. But certainly countries that aren't starving and has drought and malnutrition, countries that are functional economies, generally are more healthy than Americans. They're generally less obese, less processed food. Israelis are, by definition, kind of Mediterranean diet. So they're eating better fats. They're eating all these immune-enhancing foods that we don't have as much. So going into it, they were going to have a better time. Number one. Number two, I think, it's just my opinion, but it's borne out by the real-world experience. The second thing that Israel has, as do most of the first-world countries, a full and comprehensive national health care. So that you're able to really look at data properly. And so to me, those are two things. So you're right. They're reporting the breakthroughs a lot faster, and they understood how and why it happened. And they conclude, we opened up too fast. They did. They opened up with about 40 to 50% vaccinated, and then they started letting people go. They should have chilled out till it was 75 or 80 or 85. That's because you do that with other organisms. You do that with chickens and pigs and dogs. You don't vaccinate 40% of the dogs and then just let the other ones run around, right?
I just thought of something.
Okay, please.
I couldn't hear much of that for some reason. My computer wrote up, but that graph we were just looking at. You know what? If you vaccinated 99% of your population, you're not going to be testing those people, are you?
You're not going to be what? I couldn't hear.
You're not going to be testing them, especially because a lot of jobs are requiring one or the other.
Yeah, well, some of them are tested, but yes, not a lot. But I think in general, we haven't even talked about this, but the USA has been a shit show for testing.
An example of, you know what I mean?
We've not been a good example of testing from day one. So that we agree on that we're doing poor testing. But lots of vaccinated people get tested for their jobs or for different things. So that one's a little tougher. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Nate, thank you so much. it looks like great. No one has any final questions. That's great, because I think we hit all these things. But Nate, thanks, and
How many people are watching?
how many? Well, it varies over the minute. Right now there's 8, but I'd have to look at my
Of course.
but over the course of the comments over 3 hours now, dozens, because what happens is 7 or 8 people are watching and then they come off and 2 come on and 3 go off. It varies, but the way you can tell, if you want to go to the YouTube link, in fact, let me give you the YouTube link. I'll put it in our chat right now. So click it right away, because once I close this meeting, all the chats go away. But if you go there, you can see the comments people made. You can see you can participate. You can answer to somebody. I've put as many as I can of your links in there. But feel free to go in there and add more links. But I don't know. Over the course of the whole hours, a few dozen, maybe 50 people were on. I don't know, but just looking at all the different names. But we had a good spirited crowd. We had a couple people supporting your view, and we had a couple people supporting the view of, hey, let's get. Oh, I see. There's too many. Okay, sorry. It's not letting me put one of your links up because there's too many letters. There we go. All right, I'll do it separately. Okay. Yeah. So we had a variety of people. And I think it's great because it's not like you were just getting beat up on. Say again? It broke up.
I heard.
Yeah, can't hear you. It's a shame. Yeah, whatever your internet has gotten.
I really enjoyed.
There we go.
If you can hear me, I just want to say I really enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise, my
friend. I appreciate. You had open discussion. I hope I did my side justice. I know I missed a few things, like how they changed how they stopped naming. They renamed polio AFP at the introduction of the polio jab, which is also another reason why polio seemed to. It's one of the oldest chicken books, is renaming the jab injury.
That flies in the face of what I've heard scores of actual polio survivors say. I know people in their 60s, 70s, 80s who go, oh, my God, I remember this. And I knew a kid at school who had it, and there was someone over there that had it. The next town had it. And then this person did. Some people got sick from the shot, because you get sick from the shot sometimes. I don't know how many times they can say it. But that's one of my favorite ones. This continual bringing up that, someone got sick from the shot. Yes, that's a statistical possibility. So there's all that about polio. But did you do your side justice? I guess in a way, very little new information, with all due respect, just because I'm surrounded by this. People send it to me. There was 1 or 2 links, absolutely, and I thank you for that. You gave me a few things that I hadn't heard. One of them was the open fairs. I hadn't seen that. But I think with that as one of your evidence, that kind of didn't go so well, because
so much information I'm trying to take in lately.
Yeah. But I would leave you with.
But when you're on a platform this, you're right. I gotta dot my I's and cross my T's.
Even without being on this forum, if you're gonna go to a site called Open Fairs, I'm just hoping more people are critical and they go, like I did, right to the bottom and says, this is a private site. This is not official info. As a matter of fact, here's our disclaimer about causality. I just hope whatever side we're looking at, whether it's go vegetarian or, don't use butane lighters, whatever the argument is, I just wish people would go to this and look for bias, look for the sources, look for things a little bit more. And I felt like if you're asking about your side.
I heard that they don't even have a criteria laid out or published that would I just heard RFK say this. I don't have a document on it, but supposedly they don't even have criteria that would enable them to say yeah, this is a causal relationship. They
Yeah.
haven't published criteria anywhere. So we
When
have
you
to
say
take it
they,
we have to take their word for it that
Mhm.
all these can be dismissed, that all these
When,
deaths can be dismissed. You know,
when,
when majority, 67 to 85% are done by doctors.
when you say
Now,
they, who do you mean? What do you mean they, or they're not telling us? Who's they? FDA, CDC,
whoever would
NIH?
be dismissing this, the CDC, the
Okay.
FDA,
Okay.
you know, the
So what about
MAA, like
okay? So what about the health departments in Peru or in Israel or Germany or Ireland or the UK in general, which skips the bottom part of
if
Ireland,
things weren't set
where
up
they're
to
all
just
saying,
automatically
yeah, they're
if
all
things weren't kind
lying.
of
They're all
established
lying.
in a way that it massive amount of excuse. No, they're not. They're not. They're not. They're like blind dogs in a pen. Like they just don't know anything else. It's like watching a. It's like if all you had was a hammer, everything is a nail. All you know is
So
to jab, 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 and
yeah.
it doesn't matter like how much injury it's causing. They think the answer is more jabs.
Yeah.
It's actually
And,
insane to watch.
and to confirm, all of them. The health department of Saudi Arabia, of Turkey, of Japan, of South Korea, of Singapore, of
Unless
Australia, New Zealand,
unless some
all
have
of them, right?
stopped.
Well,
No,
they
I heard
haven't. All these
Slovenia
countries.
said, "Look, we're at 50%. We're done. Like
Who's
we've
that?
had enough." And what
What
that
country?
was translated to me,
What country?
uh, I want to say Slovenia. One of the Baltic,
Yeah.
one of the Baltic
Well,
starts with
first
S.
off,
The
yeah, but
president is on
yeah.
Slovenia.
Okay,
Slovenia. Yeah.
I
He
haven't
said,
heard
"Look,"
that, and
and I think that they saw what was happening.
yeah, but they also had
They were
really
like,
low.
"Look, we've had enough."
They also had really low numbers though compared to us, and a national health care, right? So
We don't
it's
have numbers
what? Excuse me.
without a proper diagnosis.
Okay, so we're moving
Without
to a different
without
topic again.
without a
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I know. No, I know. It's tough. It's tough. We
well,
because
it really
everybody's
isn't. It's
arguing
actually
about
pretty
numbers
easy. It's actually
and
pretty
risk
easy.
versus benefit. There is no risk versus benefit.
Well, there certainly is. The risk is you get COVID and die, which 4 million plus humans on Earth have, and it's not done yet, which 700,000 Americans have. And if we go with just 1%, it's only 1%, and we let this burn out, we're
That's an
facing.
assumption. That's a hypothesis
What's an
that people
assumption?
have caught something. Actually,
Okay.
there is no proof of
Yeah.
contagion.
So a
There's
friend
been
of mine, whose dad died of COVID, was diagnosed of COVID. It's not real. Musicians, I have a friend who someone in one of his bands died. Trumpet player died, but you're saying I don't. Fortunately, I don't have any
I
firsthand
mean,
knowledge, but I know probably
no, I'm
50.
saying people die, and it's not always of nothing or anything.
Yeah, but it's
There's
never
been a
COVID
huge change in
because
our
that's made
environment.
up.
And if you
Yeah.
couple it with a
Okay.
positive PCR test, it's blamed on
Yeah.
this specific disease,
Okay. Yeah.
SARS-CoV-2.
Okay. Well, we're
You
going.
know,
We're going
but
full
they don't
circle.
have.
We're going full circle, and your view is clear that even the deaths that are there, even the people who been tested for COVID, you're saying
How
it's
say
not.
they're there?
It's
You're
something
saying
else. Yeah.
that's there.
Yeah.
People have
And you've dropped the hint.
attributed it to a
Hang on.
specific particle.
Hang on. You've dropped the hint a couple times that the real reason you see, and you used one country, Paraguay, because they had fiber optics and not 5G, which I'd have to have that demonstrated as absolute fact. But but when I said, "Wow, that's the only country that sees that," then you changed it and you said, "Well, maybe it's others." But I hear what you're saying is that
No, there's a few others.
okay. I hear what you're saying though, that this disease, these deaths are existing, but they come from other things, us collapsing our natural environment, electronic pollution, et cetera, et cetera. Is that correct? It's not COVID.
Whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's SARS-CoV-2.
Okay. Okay.
No,
We'll leave it at that.
COVID is a set of symptoms.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well,
But
yeah, sure. We'll leave it at that, though.
To say that we can create a test for it,
Yeah. Okay. It's been really enjoyable. I do have to go because I'm 2 minutes over my deadline here, but for other meetings I have. But it's really been fascinating, Nate, and we'll do this again, my friend. I invite anyone actually who wants to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
And here's one
Check
more
out
link of yours.
virology.
I put that
.com.
up. I put that up on in the YouTube. I invite you to go to the YouTube and add whatever you want. And I'm writing one more from Nate right now. I'm putting all your links there. I'm happy to put your links. And oops, it's got too many letters. Damn it. Let's see. Let me just fix that. That's annoying, by the way. Well, it is what it is. But YouTube only gives you 200 characters. I'm going to take out the part where you say takes a second to load because that's not that important. All right, there we go. People have the link. They can take a look. I've bent over backwards to make sure your links on these things. But feel free, go to the YouTube. Did you click the YouTube link? Before
Yes,
we go?
I got it.
Okay, good. That way, because once I shut off this meeting, all of our chat links will go away. But you can go, and I invite you to keep commenting there. Folks, have a good one. We'll see you next week. Thanks, all of you who watched now or later. Nate, I appreciate it, my friend. We'll see you soon.